Greetings and welcome to today's Outformation class, our first class for 2024. My name is Wu-Sabat. I am a moderator for today, alongside Hara M. Habab Jajef Reye Atap and Samike Abek Tema, who are moderators. Today's class will be hosted by Nabab Katnihes, and we will be running a recording of the master teacher for the first 20 minutes. Then we will go into the class for today, which will be the proof by way of Part Nabab Yaanuwn, Part 24. So just be a little bit patient. We will start shortly, and looking forward to a good class today.
Nabab Mossad. Today's reading is called The Secret of the Seed. Question: Master Teacher, are we Black Asiatics? Answer: Well, beloved, let me say straightway to that question, no. Question: That's it? Just no? Answer: Let me explain the origin and use of that word pertaining to the American Negroids. It was introduced in the wilderness of North America by one man they claim was half original. Question: And who is that person, Master? Answer: A man they called W.F. Muhammad, or Master Farad Muhammad. Even Wallace D. Muhammad they claim was from Arabia, born February 26, 1877 A.D. Question: What does that have to do with Asia or Asiatics? Answer: Please let me finish. Back in the 1900s, a man came on the scene. His real name was Arabic Wali Fa'ad Muhammad, and he started Arabic teaching the American Negroids a strange new doctrine of Islamism. Question: Such as? Answer: Well, let me first tell you of two very important men who were influenced by this stranger. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali, born January 8, 1886, the founder of the Canaanite Temple, later became the Moorish Science Temple in 1914 AD. And the other was the messenger Honorable Elijah Muhammad, born October 7, 1897 AD, the founder of the Voodoo Temple, later became the Nation of Islam around 1930 AD. Question: I have heard of both of them and read their teachings, yet how? Answer: Wait one moment, beloved. You see, both of these great men used Asiatics in their teachings, and it's from that same stranger both of them related their roots to Arabia and Mecca. Like this, in the lesson given to the messenger Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you must have read these questions and answers. 1. Who is Allah, Supreme Black Man of Asia? 2. Who is the original man, the Asiatic black man maker owner? So you see the use of Asia or Asiatic by them, and the stranger referred to himself as the Prophet W.F. Muhammad at the end of their lessons. Later his followers called him Allah in person, so to them he was a supreme being, black man from Asia. Question: I remember reading something like that. So he was from Arabia, they claim, or the East, and that made him Asiatic? Answer: Well, that is when the problem comes in. They did not speak Hebrew or Arabic, nor did his follower look this word up to Arabic, nor did his follower look this word up to find out what it really means. You see, there is no way the Prophet Noble Drew Ali or the Messenger Honorable Elijah Muhammad or W.F. Muhammad could know that in the year 1953 AD, the two genetic scientists would decipher the human genome, the chromosomes, the double helix, and count that humans have 24,000 chromosomes. Question: What does that have to do with my question? Answer: You see, what they discovered was in actual fact, human beings have 3 separate trees of life. Question: Trees of life, Yaanuwn? Answer: Yet 3 separate genetic DNA roots not related originally, and make the Adam and Eve story of the Bible and Quran not true. They were not the very first human beings on this macabre planet. Question: What you mean that's a lie? Answer: Well, not exactly. They existed, yet not the first. In fact, only 6,000 years back from the year 2000 AD. Adam was born June 6, 3761 BC. Question: who else was here before them? Answer: well, son, that is what deciphering the DNA has proven. The three trees of life are: the first tree, Homo naledi and Homo habilis, and that is the root of all and every black person wherever black and brown germ are on earth. The second tree, Homo denisovans and Homo florensis, and that is the root of all and every yellow person or Asians wherever yellow germ are on earth. The third tree, Homo Cro-Magnon and Neanderthals, and that is the root of all and every white person or Moirapu European, and when the creators from Pleiades wanted to remove the Cro-Magnon, who were uncontrollable, they grafted and made a new hybrid people called Basque, to send the woman who the male Cro-Magnon raped. And in time, no procreation led to the end of the Cro-Magnon because the Basque female were born Rho negative. And if a positive male mated with her, her womb would kill the fetus. So the originals was the three trees from which subbreeds has come forth. Question: wow, that is deep, Master Yaanuwn. So what about the Adamites you teach of? Answer: well, son, that is another story. You see, another group of extraterrestrials they saw as their God, Elohim or Allah, came back to Earth 50,000 years back from 2000 AD. They were from Arcturus star system, Job's chapter 9 verse 9, seeking good, gold, and they became known as Anakites and Anunnaki. They were tall black persons as seen on the stone walls in the Middle East. Well, their own refused to work the gold mines of South Africa up to Mamlahia, Ethiopia. So they decided to make a primitive worker from people of Homo naledi and Homo habilis and their own DNA. So after 42,000 years of the 6th, 7,000 year, they grafted and made a man Adapa called Adam from one of their own DNA, Nud Imud or Inki, Yahweh, and a male of the Kuthite people of Wadabi, and they grafted and made his mate a woman, Titi, called Eve, from one of their own DNA, Ninkursag or Ninti, and a female of the Sans people. This was the Adamites, only made 6,000 years ago. And when you hear me speaking of those who received the curse of leprosy by way of Utnapishtim or Ziusudra, Noah in Bible, Genesis chapter 9, verse 25, his grandson Canaan, son of Hamam, Ham, born albino and mixed seed with Moirapu Europeans to become pale Adamites. Yes, before you ask, there are two Adamite people, originally ruddy, dark reddish brown, and unoriginal ruddy pinkish lepers, the son of Canaan. Leviticus chapter 13, verse 1. Question: okay, Baba, can I call you that? Answer: yes, it only means father, son. Question: so Mukmanu blacks are not Asiatic blacks? Answer: as I stated in this opening, no. You see, it's all about your DNA. Min-Sabat, genes. Mikdabat, chromosomes. Mignan-at, genomes. Not what you call yourself now. In Hebrew, Asiyani equals Asia or Asiatics. In Arabic, Asiyui equals Asia or Asiatics. And also make note of these words and meanings. And if you don't find these words, Asiatic Asia, as you hear and see right here, nowhere in the Bible or in the Quran, no mention of Asiatic black man. Question: so what is the meaning and who are the Asians? Answer: listen to this and don't believe me, look this up. Asia is the largest continent in the Eastern Hemisphere. 17,400,000 square mile population of people called Asian or Asiatics, not Murabu Arabs, not Africans, not East Indians. That is to say, they are of Denisovans and or Homo florensis, or their own tree of subgroups who share the exact same DNA. Forget the public names, Chinese, Koreans, Japanese are all of the same DNA. And that includes all those in America claiming to be Native American tribes or Indians. They sailed over from Asia eastward to America and became tribes, Japanese in South America, Chinese in Middle America, Koreans to Canada and Alaska. That is who all of them are by DNA, which includes Aborigines and all the people living in the Pacific Islands: Philippines, Polynesians, Vietnam, Malaysians, Thailandese, Myanmarians, and Indonesians. All of them are of the Denisovan homolofluorensis DNA, and that also includes all of Russia, who was called Mongolia, who have the original Mongoloid 47th chromosome from Esau, conjoined twin of Jacob, or Edom, red one, who mixed his DNA with all kinds of people hybrids. All and defected his Mignon-at genes, and many of his offerings were deformed. Question: Wow, Pops, you mean? Answer: Wait, I'm saying the only people on Earth who are Asians or Asiatic are of the second tree of genes, Denisovans and Homo florensis, not Homo naledi or Homo habilis of Africa and America, before they separated. And that included Arabia, which was called Kushan, Hebrew Strong's number 3572, Kushan from Hebrew Strong's number 3568, Kush or Kush, Ethiopia. So America, Africa, and Arabia were all one landmass and one people, blacks' DNA. Question: What about the Middle East? Answer: That is funny because they want to hide this fact. Ethiopians, as they call Cushites, Bible, Genesis chapter 2, verse 13, onto Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. You see a man called Nimrod, Genesis chapter 10, verse 8. His real name is Nimarad and En-Merkad. This black man, this Ethiopian, founded the Middle East that included Is-Dubar, called Shinar or Shumed, Mashmaria, Sumeria. So the Anunnaki came down there in Erech, which is now Iraq, and Ahura Mazda, and Anunnaki came down in Susa or Shushan, called today Iran or Persia, also founded and originally inhabited by Cushites. Many tribes by Nimrod. That is what Moirapo Europeans don't want you to know. There was no Euro people in Persia until the Greeks invaded and took over and now claim to be Iranians. Question: So it's wrong to call our race Asiatics? Answer: Yes, that is the actual fact. So because of race mixing, you do have mixed seed of all people today the world over. Yet, the secret word is Zira, Hebrew. The aliens only made covenants with our original seed. When you read the Bible, Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 to 15, and Quran chapter 3, verse 33, Genesis chapter 17, verse 6 through 8, from Genesis chapter 3, verse 14. Question: So we're Adamites too? Answer: You mean Evites, seed of the woman, and we're the seed of the serpent. Ezekiel chapter 29, verse 1 through 3. You see, verse 3, the Egyptian is called dragon. Ezekiel chapter 29, verse 10 through 12. Why you are all over the world, seeded lost tribes of Ishmaelites, Gidad, the original Morabu Arabs, and lost tribes of Mushsasu Israelites, Judah, the original Hebrew. Now I found you all. Question: So exactly, Master Teacher, what or which tribe are Iwi Negroids? Answer: You don't need a Bible or Quran tribe Ranan name. You predate both Madat-at books. And in fact, they don't have the originals, only what they made up and claim originals, and the year 2000 AD was the year the Bible and Quran would expire. There is nothing in those Madat-at books that can help you today. Question: Why Baba Yaanuwn? Answer: Because the race of devils, the pale Modamu Adamites 6,000 years dominion, ended in the year 2000 AD. Note, they are self-destructing themselves. They are infighting, and their ability to procreate is diminishing year by year. It's the end of their world, the new beginning of our world, our next 24,000 years from 2000 AD, which was 6000 AC. We now watch them fade away with their fake false religions given by the draconian, the three frogs called Jewishism, Christianism, Islamism. Revelation chapter 16 verse 12 through 14, Revelation chapter 12 verse 7 through 9. Question: You stated the secret word is seed? Answer: Yes, that is the actual fact. Seed and what it really means. In Hebrews, Strong's number 2233, Dara, and when you look it up, you will find seed, prosperity, bear from Hebrew Strong's number 2232 and 2224. Yield. Conceive as in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. The woman's seed. You see it's the embryo matao sperm or manam semen descendants. It's also in Arabic as bizrat or zuriyat, seed or offspring. So when you read in Bible, you see the mudgaru deities, by which every name or attribute was only dealing with one seed of Muzwalu people. Not every other seed, race, gene, DNA, chromosome. Only that seed. Genesis chapter 4 verse 25, Genesis chapter 9 verse 9. Found many times in Bible as in Genesis chapter 6 verse 18. That is Noah's seed. Genesis chapter 6 verse 9 through 10. Shem, Ham, Japheth, all black men. And also you see that Genesis chapter 10 verse 1 through 14. So that was the special seed of people, the black nappy-haired people. Then on to Genesis chapter 15 verse 18. That is Abram of Abraham, and his seed only. Genesis chapter 14 verse 13. And that is Hebrews, Ishmaelites, Israelites. Black people before they were raped and mixed with Mulbanu white people. Question: why is that important, Master Teacher? Answer: simply because of those who think that they can convert by the Madat words in books, and that makes them under the covenant of the Muzyadu Hayen Matat, extraterrestrials, or Mudgadu deities they call Mugdad God. No, no, no. You must be of the seed, the DNA of the person the covenant was made with. Question: words in books? Answer: yes. The Torah was given to Dahutima's Moses, third night, third month, year 1460 BC. The Hebrew Strong's number 8451, Torah, that is only the 5 books, Genesis chapter 24 verse 12. Not all the other books or the Talmud, the Zohar, or all the other books made up by Moirapu European converts. They are not covered under the covenant of Noah and Abraham, or the woman's seed of descendants, say Matau, sperm, and Hadat ovum. They are pretenders, or in the case of a half Benjaminite called Saul, who changed his name to Paul, Baal, and said he had a vision with a ghost who said he was Jesus. Matthew chapter 24 verse 4 through 5, John chapter 5 verse 43. And then this man violated what the real Yeshua's is said to have said, Revelation chapter 5 verse 5, and said he was only sent to find that lost tribe, John chapter 1 verse 11, his own, and found them, Luke chapter 15 verse 6, and made it clear, Matthew chapter 10 verse 5, do not go to Hebrew Strong's number 1471, Goyim, Gentiles, heathens, the Greeks, Romans, and Europeans. Yet this man, Paul, did just that. Converts people not of the seed called the Christians. It's in vain. They are not under the covenant of Noah, Abraham, or the woman Eve. They are not descendants, just pretenders. And the real Yeshua's only book was Revelations chapter 1 verse 1, or the Evangel 1 book 22 chapters. All the other books, letters, are by the hands and minds of men after Yeshua's, not of him. And this also happened with the prophet in Marabia, Arabia, Ahmed. His only book was the Quran. It originally had 120 chapters, yet a non-Arabian who was from Mafrasia, Persia, named Abdul Kaaba, later changed to Abu Bakr, father of the bright morning, early morning. Because Ahmed, or Prophet Mustafa Muhammad al-Amin, saw how pale white he was as a descendant of the Greeks who took over Mafrasia, Persia. This man took over al-Islam at the death of the black Arab Muhammad and made himself the Khalifa successor. And he was not of the seed. Muhammad himself is said to have said, after me, 3 generations' genes will not be of me. That is clear not of his DNA genes seed. And because of how Muzwalu men after Moses changed things, appointed other than the seed, the same as Paul did, Abu Bakr, see the world of Jewishism, Christianism, and Islamism in chaos, unprotected in al-Islam. These men keep stepping up, making claims to lead Muslimu Muslims, do this, do that, and the Christians or Jews of European descent kill them the same. With Christian leaders, each claim that Jesus is coming during their time. Most are dead and gone, same for Jews, waiting on Elijah, and their Messiah has not come, while these three frogs fight and kill one another. Question: then who is it? Answer: you mean, was it the only true Al-Mahdi was born in Nubia of the seed of Muhammad by his only living daughter Fatima and Ali? This man, Muhammad Ahmad ibn Abdullah, born 1845 AD in Africa, and African Mukmanu black man. The Europeans tried to mix their evil seed in Sudan after they did in Makmat, Egypt. Yet he stopped them, pushed them out. So that is why I said the secret word is seed. We must protect our seed, not to get the mark of the beast or the genetic mark of the cursed seed, as you see happening today. Sabians, we must protect our seed from the cursed seed of the devil. John chapter 8 verse 44, Yeshua looked at them. He, being a Mukman black man of the tribe of Levi by his mother and Judah by his father, and note Judah with Kedar. As you see in Jeremiah chapter 14 verse 22, Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are Hebrew Strong's number 6937, Qadar, black-skinned, and in Arabic, Gaydar. They have the same meaning. So Judah and Kedar together. Question: so the real people of the Bible or original Bible and Quran were blacks, Israelites of Judah, and black Ishmaelites. Kedar down to the Quraysh tribe of Arabia? Answer: that is the actual fact. And Arabia was called, Hebrew Strong's number 3572, Kushan, the second Rasay land of black, from Hebrew Strong's number 3568, Kush, Mamlahiyah, Ethiopia, black-hued, and Mussolini tried to take over Ethiopia to mix the Roman Italian seed with the black seeds of Ethiopians. Yet he failed and was defeated, pushed out. This was attempt repeat as the Romans Italians took over Libya in the past and spread their seed or the genetic mark of the beast, the same as did the French in Tunisia and Algeria, and the Spaniards of Spain did in Morocco with the French's help, took over and mixed their seed, and the Hittites. The Turks did it in Makmat, Egypt, and the British did it in Mavradia, India. The list is long, each with their own new made-up version of what thought most Moses received, Sanan Ray Jesus received Ahmad Muhammad, and received the converts, destroyed the original doctrine, and replaced them with what is propagated today as the teaching of Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. Imitation teachings by pretenders, not of the seed. So the Asians or Asiatics are and was of the Denisovans and Homo florensis, used in the Bible, Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. Hebrew Strong's number 6924, Qadem, eastward. Also it is called Hebrew, Asiyani, Asiatics, Asians, Arabic, Asiyui, Asiatics, Asians. These are not found in the Bible or Quran as a people, so to conclude, my people of Wu-Sabat Sabians, no, we are not Asiatic black people. Question: Master Teacher, what about other races? Answer: Beloved, that is my point. People of all races existed thousands, even millions of years before the Bible and Quran existed. People spoke their own Lahagat languages, dialects, before Hebrew and Arabic. So they, meaning Jews, Christians, Muslims, are deceiving you into thinking Hebrew from Phoenician, as well as Aramaic and Syriac and Ge'ez before Amharic, Nabatic. Also know there's a difference between original Arabic, Acts chapter 2, verse 11, and the Arabic that the Persians who took over the new Christian sect, now called Al-Islam, people called Muslims, created a new form of Arabic other than the tongue. Quran chapter 19, verse 97. That is, Prophet Muhammad spoke his own tongue, Quraysh Arabic. So the new Muslims after his death made a new Arabic you see today. In this version of Quran today, with some parts remembered things like this, Quran chapter 19 verse 97. So Allah is saying the original inspirations of the Quran was sent down to Ahmed Mustafa Muhammad al-Amin in his own tongue, his own dialect of the Arabic Lahag language, which already existed before he was born, the 20th of August, the year 570 AD, because his own father's name was Abd Ilah, ancient Arabic from Hebrew and Arabic, who existed before the 9th month, 19th day, the year 610 AD. The date and time 3 a.m., when Prophet Muhammad first started to receive the Quran for 23 years from 610 AD, onto the 8th day of the 6th month, the year 632 AD, to 7:35 p.m. when he died. So my point, son, is the Arabic that is in the Quran you're holding right here is not the original tongue of the Quraysh tribe who are traced back to Kedar, son of Ishmael, and Mariba, the son of Abraham and Hagar. Question: so this is not the original Quran? Answer: that is an actual fact, and not the original revealed order or the original tongue. It's been into a form of music called tajweed, taritil, and made very difficult to read or pronounce to distract the reader from the many mistakes and confusion in that version. So, when you try to translate it, it's a trick. They who took over and set it up. Question: but why, Yaanuwn? Answer: you see, most Muslim or Muslims today do not even speak Arabic. And those you think are speaking it, such as Arabians, Egyptians, Libyans, Sudanese, Moroccans, Algerians, Yemenis, Jordanians, and Tunisians, are not. None of them speaking word for word the Arabic in that Quran today. Not one of them each has their own tongue or dialect they speak. So they don't really know what the Quran is really saying. Yet the first thing they do is ask you, do you speak Arabic? As if they mean Quranic Arabic, to say you don't understand the meaning of Al-Quran, when in actual fact they don't understand or overstand the Arabic of the Quran they hold and can read the new vowels and marks, yet not understand word by word what it really means. So it's like learning to read masak music. You learn the symbol and how they sound. That is what they do and did. Remember, only 10% of the Muslim Maqrat world claim to speak a form of Arabic, their own dialect tongue. Now, as to the other 90%, they spend their lives trying to learn Arabic first to read. It sounds just like a music sheet. Next, they think they're speaking Arabic, when in actual fact, all they're really doing is thinking in their own Lahag language. Like if you ask one of them, what does kitab mean? They will say book. So in fact, they're replacing the sound kitab from the sound book that they was told that kitab means. They never ever really are replacing their own language for the Arabic language and the Arabic's meanings. Question: wow, that is deep, pops, but... Answer: wait a moment. You also have many Muswal people around the Maqrat world who use the Arabic letters yet speak their own Lahag language, such as in Nigeria, they speak Hausa, or Turkey, they speak Turkestan, or Iran, they speak Farsi, or Pakistan, they speak Urdu, and others you think they are speaking Arabic when they're not. So you see the Sawab truth, they have not one original Quraysh Quran, just as the Torah and the Evangel, none of them have the originals. Don't believe me? Check this out. A word game. Question: and it all leads back to our DNA? Answer: that is an actual fact. The Torah, Evangel, and Quran were sent down to those of our Salal race from Moses to Muhammad. Yet we had Tarabat cultures, built Marat at pyramids, and Maqdash at temples, long before these books that don't go back before 1460 BC with Moses. And his life began in Afafra Seka, Africa, and Egypt, and his learning, Acts chapter 7, verse 22 to 23. So in fact, it all came from Muqmatu Egyptian doctrine. Well, let me close for now. An interview with Nabab Yaanuwn. Wada Marsan. Below beloved, let me say straightway to that question, no. Question that how about my side? Today
Greetings all, and welcome to another Wu-Sabat Outformation class in the UK, brought to you by All Eyes on Egypt, Midlands in the North, as part of United Sabians Worldwide. There's you 1 second. So welcome to our first class for 2024, as they record it in the Gregorian calendar, and we are continuing with the proof by way of Nabab, Yaanuwn, part 24, focusing in on the symbols of our life journey. The extract or the reading that was part of the introduction was, I think, referred to as I put it in the chat, in fact, just bear with me one thing, it's a seed. Just bear with me so I quote it properly. So that was the reading called "The Secret of the Seed." Yeah, that's what it's referred to as. And we can put the moderators can put the link for the chat for that reading in the chat area. We also just posted in the Tree of Life, the 3 root races, so you can go away and do some research in those areas. I think we did touch upon it in the last class. Obviously, down from 24 races, left with 3. And obviously, as it was explained in the reading, that's been scientists obviously have uncovered in the work in relation to the human genome, have broken that down now into the 3 trees of life that's been described as left out of an original 24. So check those out. Obviously, interactions between those various different trees of life or races has led to a number of different sub-races on the planet that we see today. But those are the original 3, obviously from the last 24,000 year cycle into this new 24,000 year cycle. Okay, so my name is Nabab Hess. I'm a student teacher of the master teacher. And we have a number of facilitators or moderators today to help with the class. Okay, so let's crack on.
how about my side?
So just going to open up the class for those joining us for the first time. Obviously, we are Sabian Nawapians or Nawapian Sabians, as some refer to us as. And we have obviously our culture referred to as Wu-Sabat in this day and time. And obviously as part of our the activities that have made us, I suppose, transforming us from the lost but now found by way of our master teacher Nabab Yaanuwn, as he's known to us, also known as Dr. Malachi KZ York. Obviously, we are reintroducing the Wu-Sabat culture in this day and time, and this means we've been blessed by way of our ancestors with a new language for this day and time, for us to unify mentally and realign ourselves with our Muslah through our ancestors on into our higher ancestors, the Parnatharu. And by way of that, we open this class with something referred to as falsehood, or the affirmation. So nothing to be, if you just joined us for the first time, nothing to be scared of or intimidated by. It's just, again, a cultural expression. Remember, prayer, meditation, proper diet, drinking sufficient amount of water, etc., all form part of under the badge of positive thinking. Do you understand? So this helps us, I suppose, to realign ourselves correctly based on, I suppose, where we're coming from. With a lot of misinformation and ignorance, that we are misaligned or we're not aligned with our ancestral power, our ancestral forces, and then tied back in effectively with natural nature. So again, falsehood is the affirmation. just helping us to realign and start off the class with some positive thinking. So what I'm going to do is just play that in the unified kind of form, so you can hear it when I suppose sisters and brothers come together and recite it in unison. So just bear with me 1 second, and then we'll translate into English for full and proper understanding. So just bear with me 1 moment.
Nabab, Nadar, Mukhtar, Naut, Muqdad, Baded, Patah, Naut, Mukhlas, Baded, Yaanuwn.
Pa Takyut.
Anuki, Jawef, Ashuk, Hem, Paut, Wukalal, Ashuk, Kawun, Jawef, Neya, Anuki, Kasam, Hem, Paut, Paut, Kawun, Kasam, Hem, Neya, Anuki wahu ane papaut, papaut kawun wahu ane neya, nakuk kadur najib ane kasamhum em papaut, Wu-Sabat ane mushkhashum, nakuk kadur kawan kalal pafaf nakuk arod jawef papaut, Ame wase ame aradni kawun laye bakoy jawef papaut. Anuki abedeye nafashni papaut kawun anuki papaut kadur nakuk kadur papaut amul nakuk amul.
Okay, so that was Pa Takyud, and we introduced that in English by saying, Holy, 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 Master, Overseer, Almighty, no God except Patah, no Savior except Yaanuwn. Pa Takyud, the affirmation. And then we said, I am inside the divine love of the all-expanding, and all divine love is inside me. I am a part of the all-expanding, and the all-expanding is a part of me. I am one as the all-expanding, and the all-expanding is one as me. I can succeed as a part of the all-expanding and fail as an individual person. I can be all that I wish in the all-expanding, as long as my wish is to stay in the all-expanding. I am never by myself. The all-expanding is, I am. The all-expanding can, I can. The all-expanding does, I do. So that was Pa Takyud, as I say, a positive affirmation that we start our classes with, to say that we have a fantastic or positive class experience with you today, but also demonstrating and showing our cultural attributes restored back for us, as I say, in this the new 24,000 years cycle, as our story is renewed every 24,000 years. So if you just joined us for the first time on the Zoom platform, it's an interactive class session today. So if you don't understand something that's going on, please ask questions. There's a number of moderators to help you, as well as to direct your questions to myself, and I'll do my best to answer those on your behalf today. Need to adjust your audio settings for any reason. This panel that you have there, depending on your device, you have this audio settings on the left here. So use that if you need to adjust those for any reason. We have the chat area. If you select as your default option, everyone, and so if you're placing any comments or feedback in the chat, etc., then you can do so. So not questions in this area, any kind of feedback, whatever, etc., in the chat that's not a question. Also feel free to use the reaction buttons to let us know if you're feeling the class or something that touches you, etc., etc. Feel free to use those at your discretion. Now, as I say, it's an interactive session, so the ways to ask questions, you can come in live and you press the raise hand button and ask the question directly to myself. So what will happen is that you raise your hands on a first come, first served basis, and simply you'll be asked to unmute yourself if you've joined by way of the internet, and you can come through live and ask your question directly once prompted to do so by one of the moderators. If you've dialed in, those options are slightly different, so it's *9 to raise your hand, and then once prompted, *6 to unmute yourself. In both instances, we just ask you to mute yourself back once you've asked your question or finished your interaction, as to not disturb the rest of the class with any background noise. If you don't want to come through live, then simply press the Q&A button and then type your question, and then one of the moderators will ask that question on your behalf to myself. Obviously, if we've not answered the question or covered it fully to your expectation, then feel free obviously to put further comments against that question in that Q&A area, and then we'll pick those up as a matter of course. So let's say, don't sit there in ignorance. Ask questions if things are not clear or are not understood, to help you get the most out of this class experience today. Okay, I'm not going to run the poll question, but if there is any issues with the audio today or you can't see the screen, then by all means, say feedback in the chat area, then we'll make the adjustments on the fly. Yeah. No recap quizzes today, but as I say, if we should get through over these next couple of parts to the end of this particular round of classes relating to the proof, then there'll be a summary kind of class afterwards, or for myself, a summary kind of class, picking up some of the concepts that we've conveyed within the proof and just seeing whether they've been understood. And so we've done these in the past. Obviously, I think sometimes, certainly when you're dealing with our people, there's a lot of nervousness really around answering questions being recorded and that type of thing. So we don't record individual marks when we do these quizzes. It's only a matter of just testing to see that we are, let's say, capturing what's being taught or conveyed. And if necessary, it may mean that we have to make adjustments if things are not sort of well understood, understand? But as I say, it's a class, so yeah, we want you to pick up, as I say, many of these concepts are being conveyed by the master teacher within our doctrine, and all of us obviously as students. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick introduction. If you have not encountered this before, then obviously please check out the website, UnitedSapiensWorldwide.com. Obviously, previous classes on All Eyes in Egypt, Midlands and the North YouTube channel. So we go into that, probably the introduction in a bit more detail. There's a lot to cover today, so I'm going to crack on and do a shorter introduction than normal. But as I say, if you want to know more who we are, either ask questions or, as I say, check out the resources made available to you for that purpose. But importantly, like with all of these classes, important to know who the source of our teachings are, in effect. So you're learning here the science of Wu-Sabat today. Right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding leading to sound, right reasoning as part of that. And so that's into the science or the spiritual science of the Negroid or Nagaru, known as Wu-Sabat. Now, that was started by Dr. Malachi Z. Kabina York Kran, also known to us in this day and time as Nabab Yaanuwn, or the Master Yaanuwn, and born in Takoradi, Ghana, which is in obviously West Africa, of part of the Iwe tribes out of the Akan tribes in Ghana, by way of his obviously mother's side. So we are a matriarchal culture, so female first, and that's aligned with natural nature. Obviously, monotheistic religions have different sets of options around that, so it may be more around patriarchal thinking. That's why they name their god as a he, but we start, and even the word Wu-Sabat in its origin is feminine in origin in that regard. So it's important when you're speaking about teachers or leaders per se, that you understand their genetic lineage. So the purpose of obviously showing that in this regard. So he was born by way of Mary Abbott of York, known as Fatima Miriam, and I suppose maybe arguably, as we've stated before, maybe one of the most important sacred feminine born in the last 6,000 years, given the current state and condition that our people find themselves within. Yeah, and so here we see her, obviously she was born March 10th, excuse me, within the year, so coming up to, I suppose, her incarnation date anniversary, and she's transitioned now to become one of our ancestors. And so you see her here in previously what would be known as the sort of clan mother attire, which originated, as I say, in ancient Africa, ancient Tamaray, or ancient Egypt, by way of obviously the feminine Nigon. Now, as I say, we've shown you before these glyphs here of the lotus flower, symbolizing, I suppose, the symbol of regeneration, which obviously is found and exhibited within the sacred feminine. So the importance, obviously, of the mitochondrial DNA found within the woman, where the true lineage within the genes passed on from mother to daughter. So Mary Abbott of York, ties Dr. Malachi Kabina York into his Ghanaian heritage in that regard, as I say, for those Akan tribes, or the Iwe tribe, as part of the Akan tribe. So a very important individual who, as I say, is now one of our ancestors, that by way of your own family, you can call upon for assistance. Now, on the sacred masculine side, and as we know with the way genes work, father to son obviously is only carried through by way of one generation, and so all the historical or our historical lineage goes by way of the female line, by way of the rules of natural nature. But Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi, a very important individual, again, born 1922, transitioned, unfortunately was assassinated in 1970 as the father of obviously Dr. Malachi KZ York, but ties into the Mahdi family, so a very important family in this regard. The name Sayyid ties back into the lineage, for those of the Islamic degree, directly into the Prophet Muhammad. So 19 Imams after Muhammad was the prophesied of the Mahdi, which means guide in English, or the guide in English to come, but obviously his freckles were too close together, and so therefore not recognized by the Islamic world. Do you understand? So the dark skin lineage of that is not really recognized, obviously, because of racism and other illnesses that have coloured the minds, obviously, of the people, and the recording of the history in that regard, or our story in that regard. So we recognise and acknowledge the Mahdi. Quite as kept, the Mahdi is not Sudanese in heritage. In actual fact, it's from Nubia, so part of the ancient pre-dynastic ancient Egyptians. Obviously was hired by the Sudanese to drive the British and the Turks out of Africa successfully, as I say, in many different wars that took place, but using, as I say, powerful spiritual powers, or black magic, as we classify that as. Remember, black magic nothing to do with what they show in James Bond and other movies by way of Hollywood, but rather it's to deal with when you are black and the forces of nature work for you. So something that at times, or at all times, we should in fact rely upon, as opposed to, as I say, being fearful of and afraid of. So they've done an interesting job, a very effective job of disassociating Negarus or Negroid or black people away from the very powers, as I say, that make us powerful, understood. And this is basically the reality of who we are, is that we are, all of the various things we teach, our foundation is that we are connected to our ancestors. This is what we know, and this is what we can prove, understood. And so there is power, obviously, in calling upon our ancestors and our assistants, because they do not pass on. They do not pass away. They simply pass on. So energy cannot be destroyed, simply changed in polarity. So us not calling upon our ancestors is doing us a disservice. And in fact, it's our natural nature for us to call upon ancestors or deities that are not aligned with our own genetic lineage. Understood? So this is important, or one of the actual facts. Restored back in the minds of the posterity or the descendants of those as the new cycle information came into play. Understood? So to not be calling upon forces or sources not of our own DNA lineage. So in doing so, obviously both of this combination coming together, so the mother at 1, the father at 3, coming together to produce 5 in the sacred geometry understanding in terms of those numbers. Numerology is part of our culture also, but it produces, say, and this is Master Teacher at age 25, as we were then in the School of Islam, known as Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi, born June 26, 1945. And as we've said many times in these classes, as indigenous people to this planet, we do not dig up the bones of our ancestors to find out about our story or our lineage, as opposed to maybe what Europeans have done through sciences like archaeology, paleontology, so on and so forth. Do you understand? This is not our standard approach to find out who we are. The science of us is that information comes to us by way of outformation. And if we knew our story, we would know about the term of the Yaanuwn, Nabab, Ahaptar, which is a vehicle or vessel that's produced by way of our ancestors that allows them to communicate or speak to us information that we need to know to aid our transformation, namely ascension journey, to realign ourselves back with natural nature. And so that being was referred to by the ancient Egyptians as Tahuti or Tahuti, various different guises. In Islam, this being is known as El Hadia. So in Islam, there's the vehicle or vessel is known as Ila Mutajasid, and Hindus, for example, refer to this individual as avatar. They use the term avatar or avatara. Now, this allows information or outformation to be communicated to us by way of information that obviously is necessary for us to absorb, master, and aid our growth journey to fulfill our potential by way of divine design within this school on the planet Earth today. Understood? And so our doctrine, or Wu-Sabat, obviously, or our ability to embrace Wu-Sabat, the medicine necessary for the sickness that we were suffering from, was designed for us in this day and time. So the doctrine is designed for the minds, obviously, of the time that we're living in today. So we are the ancient Egyptians of many thousands into hundreds of thousands into millions of years ago, obviously, but however, environmental changes, cultural changes, genetic interference has changed how we perceive the world in and around us today. So a doctrine was necessary, had to be tailored, understood, by a master teacher incarnated to design something that was necessary to remove or cure the spell that we were suffering from, which takes various different iterations depending on the culture. The first part was in ancient Egypt known as the spell of a man. This was the spell of amnesia. The second part of that was the spell of Kingu, which you find in the Sumerian culture, which was the spell of religion. We started to look outside of ourselves for the power that we were created in. So it's looking upwards, for example, for our divinity rather than inwards, and then placing power on external things, when in actuality ourselves were created and born and grown as supreme beings, or Fa'ek, Mokwan, as they refer to in the Sabaic language. And then the third aspect was the spell of Leviathan, which is in the Bible by way of monotheistic religion, which is the spell of money. Do you understand? And so placing power or the love of, not say that we need money, but the power or the love of money is a problem in this day and time. Meaning to say that effectively, especially if you're born into, like many of us were, not all, but many of us were born in council estates, ghettos and things around the world, etc. Obviously that the power is in this piece of paper with a foreign entity or face on, or royalty as they might classify it as, and you perceive the power. Let's say somebody gives you a certain amount of money. Yes, money has power within this society, but you're perceiving that as having something real and tangible in that regard, which even in this day and time is no longer backed by gold or other precious metals or minerals that it was supposed to represent. But you're seeing the power in that, and not, for example, looking at the sun and seeing the power that's delivered from that being or entity that's provided to us, or the fresh air that's provided, or the fresh water, for example, or the power of the earth to grow things that we utilize, as say, to sustain ourselves by way of food and other things, as I say, that are provided for free. Obviously, as I say, the best things in life are free. So we're putting this energy into money like it has real power, and then are ignorant of the real power and the source and the help around us, as our ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, referred to as the Natharu, where they get the English word nature from. It means overseers. Excuse me. But their proper name, or even higher ancestors, were known as the Morozaku, the Riskians, obviously, and the word in itself means to provide or providers, as we see as the manifestation of our Natharu as sons, their S-U-N sons, that we see out there. So what it's showing us is that the help that we were seeking for all of the racism and atrocities perpetrated and still being perpetrated against our people for the last 6,000 years of the previous 24,000 year cycle. You understand? The help was always there. It was in fact right on our doorstep, so to speak, but we ignored it in favor of other gods forced upon us, as I say, particularly through slavery, and in the last, as I say, 400 years of the last 24,000 year cycle, where it, as I say, that teaching created an interception in our genes, created a person that looked like the Negroid Nagaru the Fa'ek Mokwan supreme being that was created by the Nefaru to inhabit the best parts of this planet and planet Earth and the resources that it naturally had to offer. But we had the mindset, as I say, of the Caucasian, and still have today, understood, worshipping their gods, worshipping their image and after their likeness, but looking like, as I say, the descendants of those ancient Egyptians. So again, with that being said, that created, as I say, a separation, an unnatural situation, because basically whatever your religion or culture or spiritual science, which is how it should correctly be said, is that it's supposed to align you with the ancestors, obviously, that gave birth to you, do you understand? Obviously, who are in a different form to us now from a energy perspective. Simply like if you take water, for example, water, its lowest vibration is ice. You speed up the molecules, it becomes water, and then it transforms, if you speed up the molecules again, into a steam or a form of gas, understood? And depending on the potency of that gas or what is in the formula, when you slow down the vibration, will determine what it appears in its liquid state, and what it then appears in if you freeze them again in its solid state, as the understanding of those three states is to be currently. So this is important, because if you understand that simple science, then basically all of those transformational changes from those example states that we just provided means that basically there is a direct correlation to who you are genetically, who your ancestors are effectively, and the way for us to transform from what we are now into what they are, because, as I say, death is a doorway to the eternal forever, do you understand? And birth is a doorway to a limited life. So when you're born, you're destined to die. So they see here as death and where they are as true living. Do you understand? And so in order for us to get to that point, as I say, we can't do that by way of emulating a race that is different from our own. Do you understand? So they have their ancestors, their spiritual science and things that work for them and their physical structure and optimizes them. And in some cases, in the instances of the Mukasu or the Caucasian, their job is to interfere or to hinder our progression because the forces of six ether or the force of death have to subsist on the forces of life in order to survive. So there's obviously the 6 and the 9 at a certain level can be in conflict obviously with each other as two different viewpoints or opinions and forces, of course, in how they utilize the environment in and around them. Do you understand? So we need our own stuff, obviously, which is appropriate for our transformation journey. So you cannot be optimum emulating somebody else. And in fact, that's unnatural nature for any race, obviously, on this planet to do that, other than obviously if those are embracing our culture. And that's not from a point of egotism. It's just basically the fact that we encompass all of the energy and all of the powers. The source of it comes from us. So if somebody's aligning and realign themselves with the all race and the all nation, then of course that pathway for them would be progressive, not regressive, as it would be in the context of us doing it in the opposite way and direction, which we've become comfortable to do. Do you understand? And that is part of the mental sickness classified by the master teacher as a spell. So here, as I say, the outformational context means that you've got the physical structure and then you've got the whole light being or the incarnated master conveying information that we need in this day and time to aid that transformation journey. So not asking anybody to accept or to believe it. Do your research. As I say, you judge a tree by the fruit it bears. So look at, as I say, if we were destined, as I say, all of these different stories given in the old world information, have they yielded what they promised to say? So has Muhammad returned, has Moses returned, has Jesus returned, and all these various different stories, our people seem to be the ones suffering the most. And in fact, in actuality, what we do see is these monotheistic religions certainly fully engaged with the very system that they're supposed to be fighting against, according to all of the prophecies within the various books that they claim to follow. Do you understand? So whether it's the Seventh-day Adventist Church singing at the late Queen Elizabeth's birthday or whatever the case may be, or celebrations. So you're right intertwined with not what we say, but what you say, who that person represented in the book, the very books that you follow, but you're there, intertwined and supported. And we see that all over the monotheistic world today. So the new gods in this day and time are in actuality the politicians of the world, who are the new deities in this modern world. And we see how much integrity people often in that position, not saying all are bad, but we see how much integrity and things that they do. Is it representative? They have the real power, but are they really representative of the moral values and standings that a people need, as I say, for progressive development and growth? So this is Pa Nabab Yaanuwn, age obviously now currently doing 135 years in prison. So we're seeking obviously his freedom. As you see, all of the teachers connected to the positive growth of our people, particularly those who promoted leaving the West and returning back to Africa, were targeted, character assassinated, even killed, so physically assassinated for those works. So unfortunately, for the wrong reasons, in good company in that regard. This is why we have to fight to preserve our transformation journey and protect the integrity of our soul, as this is what, as I say, allows us to supersede the death, the physical death, and keep our development and growth as supreme beings, obviously, on this planet in this day and time. Okay, so let's crack on then and get to where we need to do for the previous part of the class. Are there any questions? Sorry, Matthew, if you're speaking, just cut off.
Sorry, there are no questions at this moment.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Right, okay, so just to give people a little bit of context, certainly those who have not joined us before, just bear with me 1 second. So we're dealing with the proof, but there were a number of terms that we sort of were dealing with, which is around this page 65, that we're dealing with sort of universal terms like universal ether, Negro, ether genesis. So we were looking at certain terminology, I think, shown on this particular page, and so needed to delve in a little bit deeper to understand, or ether negro genesis, maybe the better way to pronounce it. So looking at various different terminologies to understand better what was taking place on this particular page, then to come back to it and obviously continue the science of that. So we'll continue with that progress. So we jumped into a few different books and doing a lot of reading, maybe a little bit more than we would like, but it's also showing you, I suppose, the connection between the way in which this doctrine and obviously maybe the power of the master teacher in terms of, you know, the time that he's been around, really, to be breaking down something maybe 30 years ago and then it now being explained maybe in some detail, sort of 30 years later, and showing that, I suppose, time to us and the perception of time to the Negroid or Nagaru is very different to how you perceive it by way of the clocks or watches, by way of the Gregorian calendar. Now is the time. We have multiple thens of the future and obviously thens of the past, understood, which we would say way back then, or we can talk about the future as being, then in terms of going forward, all within the context of now, and I say, how time, as I say, in the progression of us within space, matter, and time. So these are the three principles required for existence. That mind replaces or is time within the context of that three. Do you understand? And how we utilize that in terms of our journey as things, and as we progress through the rules of existence, yet being, becoming, became, understood, and how, as I say, nine ether forces almost build or have the ability, or ether has the ability to not only convey the necessary energy to progress our growth in that context, but it would also not only build the conveying of the power or the conveyance of the power, but also the infrastructure necessary or the environment necessary to support the progression or the expansion of our mind into these places going forward as it expresses itself in different contexts. So this is who we are as a people, and this is what you were sort of really learning about. This was being expressed to us in different ways. So if you haven't just joined us for the first time, please check out those previous parts of our YouTube channel. Don't be intimidated, just jump in. If things don't make sense, then feel free to ask questions, and do my best to explain that in that context. So I think we were around here. So we had finished off, I think, jumping into the Holy Tablets and touching in upon, as I say, so we'll probably start from here just to sort of kick in. So as we were sort of shown you in the reading, we placed in the chat, that we talked about the fact that the three now scientists, I suppose, have discovered by way of the Human Genome Project that these trees of life, or the fruit sort of seeds, are different. And there's compounds what we've just obviously explained about us having different ancestors and different ascension pathways as human beings. As I say, we obviously talk a lot in these classes about race, but our master teacher and us embracing statements he's made, he's saying no one wins the race in racism. So we're not into wrong racism, but we are into facts and truths. And obviously we can't, as I say, water down what has to be said for our people because some other race who has a history of let's say subversive or adverse actions to our race, and continue maybe culturally, or the system that is put in place is designed to benefit from our ignorance as a people. Understood. We can't not call that out, obviously, to stop us feeding the nectar of Six Ether and ghostational forces that keep us suppressed, because ultimately this is a pathway to our destruction and not our progression or ascension. So we deserve for our energy to be directed to our ancestors and not go into any other party that we don't choose, if we choose to do so, to give it to them willingly. Do you understand? So not this be giving our energy over to other parties, understood, because of our ignorance, because we've been fooled or tricked. You understand? So this must be corrected appropriately in this day and time. So we start from 365. It says, as you compare today to the three major races and numerous subdivisions of race of human beings called planetary nations on Plan ET and extraterrestrial plan. So if we were up on what we were saying, we would replace the word race with the term planetary nation. Do you understand? And understand and say that there are three root races, and then the combination of mixing between those three has led to many different sub-races of human being on the planet Earth. In fact, more races fall under the banner of being Negroid than most would actually accept. So most want to be white, but in actuality, more sub-races and various different things that want to be white, but in actuality, genetically fall under the black planetary nation banner. So because we encompassed or all races really came from us in that context, we are known as the all race or the universe nation. Do you understand? Because of what we represent here on this planet in that regard. Yeah. So it says here 366, the 9 subdivision race of deities constituted this universe. Papa, or the all race or universe nation on Makab Mata, planet Earth, and by the extension of all, Papa, or the all, this Wahu Makwan universe, and the Kaleh Makwanat omniverse. Know yourself. So we covered this in the last class here, that obviously if you want to know about the universe or better understand of the universe, the multiverses, into the omniverse, study you. Do you understand? Because obviously in one of the great triads, we have our perspective here, obviously as human beings. You have obviously the planetary perspective, and then you have the, I suppose in the context, the solar perspective and suns. And so within this context, we see that there's a correlation between all of these various different levels, complex design, but a correlation where, as I say, we're matching these same characteristics. And we're obviously going to explore this further. Well, we're exploring this through all the parts of this class, but certainly re-emphasize this as we go through the class today. Now, it says 367, the physical Wahu Makwan universe did not always exist as you know it. The Wahu Makwan universe was grown out of and in the Kaleh Makwanat omniverse. This Wahu Makwan universe, as well as Wakut time itself, had a beginning by way of a Big Bang 18 billion years ago. 368. So today's astrophysics reveals that there was a Wakut time when this Kale Makwanat omniverse as you know it did not exist, and there was a time when time as you count it did not exist, and its birth was not random. So this is quite an important I suppose concept for us to understand, or concept is the right word, but it's concept for us to kind of get into our minds when we start using things like dates. Yes, because as you are fully aware, when we talk about the context of time, we are relating it to from an earthly perspective. Do you understand? So many things in actuality in our doctrine relate to, and our understanding from our ancestors relate to I suppose an earthly perspective. Someone's asked a question. I think this is dealing with actual fact, his story. This is what we're in at the moment. Yeah, so apologies for that. We've jumped into actual facts, his story. Yeah, that's what it's referred to as. So in this context, time is obviously from an earth perspective. Yeah, the master made a statement in terms of how we think, or how our minds at one time were trapped behind the 9 ball, understood? And this is describing, or a symbolism to describe that we're seeing things obviously from an earthly perspective. So some people will feel comfortable if they ask you a question, for example, you say, well, you understand, this took place 18 billion years ago, or this took place 4 billion years ago. When in actuality, if our solar system did not exist, obviously, at that time in the current form that it is today, then what do you really mean by a year? Do you understand? Or a day, or a month? Insofar as the fact that the planet Earth obviously is rotating on its axis, and obviously one revolution, we're referring to that as a day. Obviously, when it goes on orbit around our sun, 93 million miles away, then we're referring to that as a year. So if that configuration of things doesn't exist, then what do you really mean by a year? You understand? So it's always important to understand that you have to understand, well, whose calendar are they using, and from what perspective are they talking about? This is sort of important things to understand. It's more important, more so, to understand maybe the sequencing or the event itself, and then obviously think about the measurement of time. So more so, you understand, even now, as we have moved from the previous 24,000 cycle into the new 24,000 cycle, we must record things by our time. You understand? Not by his time, which, as we know, has obviously a lot of errors in which they haven't corrected. You understand? So therefore, the calendar and the time is off. 2024 now is a leap year for that reason, isn't it? That we a typical, what they call in the period of a day is really, it's not 24 hours. 24 hours is the rounded use of the time, but rather 23 hours, 56 minutes and 6 seconds. You understand? So therefore, you understand, there's a loss. There's a loss of time in that regard, which then has to be obviously recalibrated while they added an extra day every 4 years, referred to as a leap year. Understood? But you know, as we've said previously in this class, if you miss a train by 1 minute, for example, you've missed a train. So it's not a case of, you can sort of replay that situation if those certain processes, time a minute may be more important than not. Some processes, if you leave an egg boiling for 1 minute over, you're going to get a different type of egg than if you left it, you understand, for 1 minute previous. So in certain instances, certain events, certain units of time can be important, and in other instances, it's not so important. So nature necessarily doesn't always work like, you understand, by, a baby can be born 9 months, you understand, it can come after 9 months, it can come slightly before 9 months. So in some instances, nature is organic in that way. It's not as specific, working like clockwork. In other times, it can be very specific. Either way, their time is not designed to work with our mind. You understand? So as we've expressed previously, so our time must work for us and our clock must work for us. Obviously, we were given a new calendar before the end of the last 24,000 year cycle. We have not organized ourselves clearly well enough to retain the land that we had and to have a land of our own where that clock could be active, where it worked on a 38-hour time frame of a sud, but the difference was we included firsts as the first point of time and not seconds. You understand? So it was a continuous flow within the clock of a sud of recording time, which obviously we have not maintained as a culture and have to get back to understand time correctly. Do you understand? So it's more important, I'm not saying to say that the dates that we give are not important, they are. But more important is your understanding that who's calculating or how we're calculating time in relation to these various events. You understand? Not getting into a big argument. So 24 billion. Do you understand? Well, even in the holy tablets of a stud, it gives you and it teaches you obviously about with the different stories and the different cultures. It does depend on who's recording the story and who is speaking. So, for example, in the Dravidian culture, when they use the term billions, for example, to the Natharu, that is trillions. You understand? So it would lead to different calculations of dates depending on who's talking. And what does it really mean to you as a human being in this day and time? Do we have really a concept of what a billion years is in a 120-year life cycle? Do you understand? So obviously these are things we obviously must raise up to understanding, but really in the context of most things, it probably doesn't mean a lot to you. More important to us is understand the event and the sequencing and what time is and what it means in that context to us. So any questions? Any questions? Anybody there?
Right. Sorry, I'm having some technicals on this side. There are no questions. Hold on. Give me a second. Let me just check. There's some questions popping up now. Give me a second. I'm on a laptop, which is not familiar to me, so it's not some problems. Right. Right. Gasper's on here. It says, I missed the first few minutes. What scroll are we reading from?
So we're in and out of the proof, but on this, the current scroll that we're reading from is actual facts, history. Let me just zoom out. Yeah. So actual fact number 73, his story. Any other questions?
Right. Okay. We have Manaza has asked, do we have a scientist in the culture trying to work out our proper timeline?
So good question. So we were given a new calendar and a clock to work that time, and in a book called the Wapic Grammar, it actually breaks down how to work out real time. So in both instances, not that when we have scientists, we've been given the tools to work out natural time, and so time was restated so that our new year falls on the birth date, I suppose, of the master teacher. And if memory serves me correctly, I think I have to look it up again, but I think that was reset around 1996, but they need to check that. It could be 96 or 98. So it was reset to say, well, this is the year one, and then you'd follow the time or calculating that time from there. So really and truly to live by it correctly, you would really have to be on your own land and then observing that time, because it doesn't work in the context of so you can have any time system that you want within the frame. Yeah, so within the frame of the planet revolving around its own axis, do you understand, and completing one complete cycle, understood? But the way in which our clock works, it runs a continuous, it doesn't basically pause itself like if you imagine like a day, we would say Monday, and then basically when it hits 12 o'clock, it becomes Tuesday. The clock, which we maybe have to do a class on this to explain it in more detail, but it runs continuous. So if for example, it may be that at a certain point, for example, in the 38-hour clock system, which is within one period of time, now the end point should be when, as I say, the planet makes a full rotation on itself. So you've got one cycle in that regard. But if it doesn't hit that particular marker, the clock doesn't stop. It still runs continuous within that period. So you don't come out of alignment, or you haven't got to make adjustments in previous years. The clock runs continuously in that regard. So I suppose when you say scientists, so we understand what we must do, I suppose, to create the tools necessary now to record that accurately. One, I suppose, is to be in our own land, in our own environment, and then I suppose we would have to then develop tools like, watch creation, other things, software maybe, that then starts to calculate that appropriately. But the broad principle is that you can have any time period you want, I suppose, as long as you stay within the frame. So you can have a 2-hour day if you wanted, or a 4-hour day, as long as you stay within the framework of the event that's taking place. So in this context, it would be the planet circling or turning on its own axis as one cycle. Any other questions?
Yes, from the same person again. Is asked to live in our own land. So, to live on our own land by our time properly, does that land include America, Africa, or both?
I suppose the question is, wherever we are is our land, isn't it? So, to say that wherever the people are, as Musbatu or Nuapi and Sabians, that would be the land which you could establish that time period or time zone from our context. So it could be in Africa, it can be in America, it could be wherever. Obviously, Africa is because in certain events that have taken place relating to the event pertaining to 2012, the concentration of energy that has progressed the transformation of the mental transformation that we're seeing across the world in people trying to find out who they are, so on and so forth, which is basically effectively where the axis of the planet veers between pointing away from the center of the galaxy, where there's a massive black hole, towards the center of the galaxy. So we're moving in a position where it was pointing away. So this axis change or directional change happens every 12 to 13,000 years, understood? And so we're moving towards the axis pointing towards the center of the galaxy when it was previously pointing away. So we're at the sort of halfway mark of that shift, of it changing. And so each time that happens, it triggers an event on the planet Earth where basically the central sun, the 600-mile diameter sun in the middle of the planet basically starts to emanate a double helix type energy, and which would be considered to be female energy, for lack of a better word, and then it sort of pulses against the surface of the planet, which is considered to be male energy. So effectively that pulsing back and forth happens and basically reaches an apex. So the planet basically is effectively having an orgasm, and that forces or triggers say this kind of awareness across the planet that's changing to force, across the planet, which triggers change or is forcing people to want to change or realign themselves with natural nature. Now, that point of the pulsing shifts, as I say, when this event happens, and it was in, as I say, it was classified as the Middle East, although there's no such term as Middle East. So it was in the Middle East, and some of the characteristics around that is where you see these large oil finds. So that energy shifted, or that pulse point shifted from Arabia into Africa. Do you understand? And one of the characteristics that you saw was different African countries now discovering oil. You understand? So this is one of the characteristics of that shift taking place. So the concentration of that energy is in Africa, which is why, as I say, you see many of the great leaders talking about us returning back home. Do you understand? But in actuality, to us, it's all land, isn't it? But there's a concentration of that energy more in Africa than other places, hence why to aid our transformation journey, we would want to be closer to the source of that energy as opposed to far away from it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Right. There's another question from Gasper, but I'm going to ask him to ask the question live, if he doesn't mind. So, Gasper, can you get ready to unmute yourself? And you can ask your question live. I'm going to I've clicked it now, so you can. Sorry, I've lost it. I'm just getting familiar with this. Right, I've got the question back now. Right, I'm having technicals on this side for him to go live for some reason. I'll ask the question. I'll ask the question for him. Right. So coming back to Gasper's question, it said, in the same regard as how time is off, my understanding of solar system and galaxy is off. How do we determine solar system, galaxy and universe? And then he carries on to say, how do we count 19 galaxies? ? And is the Milky Way a whole galaxy and Andromeda a second galaxy? ? This question may not fit into this lecture, but just as my time is off, let me start again. This question may not fit into this lecture, but just as my time is off, my space, galaxy, etc. is off too.
Okay.
It's a long one. So.
All right. In order to do that, I need to go into the laboratory. Let me just try and pick up the whole tablets. Pick up the questionnaire. Just bear with me 1 second, people. Right, okay. Not trying to divert away from what we want to speak about today, but just picking up this question. So there's two things. So when you say time is off, obviously, I suppose the way that time is calculated here, there's errors in the way in which time is calculated. So you're not using an accurate calendar, as we've explained. That's part of the spell when we look at it, because if a person says, I don't know, October, for example, and you know that the word oct clearly means 8, like in octopus, for example. But if you were to represent that numerically, you were to write October, what number would you write? Yeah, people can put the answer in the chat. What number would you write? So that's showing you already that basically the calendar is off. Yeah, because there's errors and mistakes in there that have not been corrected. And this is clearly because Julius Caesar added his own name into the calendar, and then Augustus Caesar added his name into the calendar, which obviously you can hear phonetically July, obviously in August, but they never corrected this obviously 10-month calendar with the numbers. So how do you go from an understanding of however many hundreds of years ago to this modern time where you're leaving errors and mistakes and you're not correcting them. Do you understand? For the day and time that we're in right now, you're still living in some past. So either you have to say, well, it's deliberate, isn't it? You deliberately want it to be accurate, or have the people in this, I suppose, belief mindset where, things can be wrong, but it's the proper way to do it. Do you understand? And we've shown many examples of that shown. So it's not that the time is off, it's just that for us, it's that the calendar is wrong. So in order to realign, this is why you have an Nabab after being born into this world, is to realign us back with the proper time again. So the Natharu, by way of this individual, gave us a new calendar or clock to calculate, obviously, natural time again, so that we would be, realigned. And part of realignment is also in learning about the language. You understand? The Misbatia or Sabatic language is helping to realign us back with natural time. This is why, if you remember, one of the iterations of that book is called The Language of Time. You understand? Because if you look at the three principles required, or the three elements required within existence, is space, matter, and time. You understand? So the language in itself, in realigning, as we expressed earlier in the class, time is, mind becomes time in that triad, because it's the mind, or us as mental beings, as we're growing, we're expressing ourselves going forward. So mind takes on time, obviously, as part of that development from us being from the world of things into being, became from nothing to nothingness to somethingness. Understood? So the mind and time are synonymous with each other. So us learning the language or realigning ourselves back to nine mind again is also part of correcting the fact that we're out of alignment with natural nature. Now you understand that as we expressed in the previous class, the space between the tick and the tock is becoming closer together. So our perception of time, although the system of time has stayed the same, as the way the recording of it on this planet has stayed the same, but actually a perception of it is shorter. And this is what we were talking about previously, where an hour, obviously, what was previously an hour is now 15 minutes. So you get less things done, obviously, within the day. Understood? Because of the, as I say, there's less space that is between, I suppose, the events that the events that sit within time. You understand? So in this tick and tock, obviously the clocks now do not do tick and tock; they just tick. So an element of this, as an element of time, has been removed from our perception. We've gone unnoticed, but obviously because that's the way in which obviously we track time. So now it's caused our focus to be a little bit off. So because an element of time, or the way in which time is being perceived, was removed. You understand? And so we haven't really noticed it until it was pointed out to us in that regard. And so we're off in that regard, you understand? Not so much because of the solar system, galaxy, etc. is off. There are bigger cycles at play that are happening, obviously, which we are aware of. And the planet, this causes then impacts obviously on the planet, and therefore impacts on us. The important thing is that when these cycles come into a certain alignment, that we obviously use it to take advantage of it in terms of our own ascensions. We have things like the dimensional shift, we have our ancestors returning, etc. In that regard, and we have to be ready, obviously, to take advantage of those opportunities as they present itself. So this is why time, I suppose, in one sense is important to us by way of those events, but we also have to align our physical structure and our etheric structure to the changes that are taking place, and this also is relevant to time. Now, in terms of the classification, let's go to the Holy Tablets. It is the first chapter, Tablet 6, verse. We're going to go from verse 41. Yeah, and it says, the sun was once a tremendous mass, a planet called Om. Yeah, this solar system was one of 19 planets that surrounded a more massive sun called Sal. Yeah, so this is what he's explaining to you, that our sun was previously a planet. Yeah. 42. Sal was named after the original ruler, Sal or Sol, whose wife was named Arena. Their combined rulership gives you the name Sal Arena or Salarina, shortened to Solar or simply Solar. 43. This massive sun, Sal, collapsed and exploded outwards, and Om got caught in the gravitational pull of Sal and exploded and gave birth to your son, Shamush. All 19 of the planets were hurled off into space and exploded to create 19 galaxies in space and beyond. Galaxies are recorded as population 1, population 2, population 3, and population 4, and on. Population 1 galaxies are based on their age, are from hundreds of thousands of years old to 25 billion years old. Population 2 is from 25 billion years old to 100 billion years old. And population 3 are from 1 trillion to 25 trillion. And population 4 is from 25 trillion to 100 trillion and on. Then 44. The Milky Way galaxy, from the Latin via way or lactea, milky, which is the 18th galaxy, which is taken from the Greek sea nymph Galactia, from Middle English galaxy, the Milky Way, from late Latin galaxias, from Greek milky, from gala, galact, meaning milk. This Milky Way galaxy exploded again to create the present solar system. The new heaven and new earth will reveal a second and third sun. It says, at this point, you have one sun called Shamash or Helios and 10 planets called 1 Mercury, 2 Venus, 3 Earth, 5 Mars, 1 Mercury, 2 Venus, 3 Earth, 4 Mars, 5 Jupiter, 6 Saturn, 7 Titan, 8 Uranus, 9 Neptune, and 10 Pluto. On the outside of the 11th planet being Meldek, and also Planet X, another name for the 12th planet, when you include the Sun and the Moon as planets, it becomes Nibiru. This was the making of the 18th galaxy, ruled by the signs of the zodiac, called solar biology. So this is giving you various different classifications, as I say, of how galaxies are recorded. Do you understand? Within the Milky Way, galaxy alone, remember there are, several million suns as part of that. So, and it depends, I suppose, how one chooses to classify that. But obviously, this is talking about what, as you described, are those 19 galaxies of Asud, and how they became as we see them today. Now, is there something else that would be useful, I think, to read for your understanding? So, just to separate that. So, we'll just shift across to the Holy Tablets again. So tablet, chapter 1, tablet 8. And we'll start from, this is page 71. We'll start from verse 19. So it says, the Milky Way, part of a spiral galaxy, is inside of the universe and is very minute. So the light from the sun comes to the earth. Light travels from the sun in 8 minutes and approximately 20 seconds, some say 4 minutes. 21. Your universe contains 19 galaxies, and there are 1 billion other galaxies. The distances in your universe reach up to 26 billion light years. 22. And your universe is the smallest of the innermost of 7 universes, which are part of a galactical federation of 19 galaxies. As the universe increases, the universes get larger and larger. 23. Your mind cannot comprehend the circumference of your universe while it is imaginable to you while in your body. The word that best describes it is infinity. The universe doesn't end. You are limited by your imagination. Insan. So this hopefully gives you the concept of the difference between universes, obviously, and galaxies as a separation of that. So remember, if you are, the master teacher gave an explanation of how you would look at the universe and multiverses in the context of obviously of each other, and this expansion and contraction that takes place. But effectively, if you took a bucket of water, you added, let's say, washing up liquid in it, and you excited the water, and you would end up with these different size kind of bubbles and shapes touching each other. Effectively, that is how you're looking at as the multiverses on into universes, understood? In these different, as I say, shapes, as happens to be a circular universe, which is filled with a liquid substance referred to as ectoplasma, understood? So it has a shape, it has an edge, so to speak, and the edges of those universes, so when they touch or bridge with another universe, this is where you have black holes, obviously, that can be created, which in instances allows certainly various different extraterrestrials to travel through these portals and cover great distances in a very short or a short space of time, understood, in that regard. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so any other questions? If not, we'll get back.
No more questions.
Okay, so let's get back to where we were in that regard. So I'm just trying to check if we've covered this part before or not. Let me just check that again. Yeah, I think we've just explained that anyway. So I think they are just for your understanding of time in that regard. Yes, I think we can continue. Let's crack on. If we need to come back to it, we will do, but I think we can press on. Now, we understood that, so certain events happen. So if certain events happen, as I say, before the configuration of our solar system existed in the way we calculate time even today, obviously you understand that, well, somebody else is going to have to calculate it from a slightly different perspective of time if how we're calculating time at that point didn't exist. So when you look at numbers, I suppose you have to think about that obviously clearly in that context. Somebody asked a question in the previous class, which was to do with I think the Matrix and virtual reality and things of that nature. And so virtual reality within the matrix of which is basically natural nature, is, remember, so I suppose giving you an example of this is that if you think about it, when you can join, let's say, a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group, for example, and when you join that group, let's say the group was existing, like WhatsApp, Telegram, I think, has the functionality where you can click a button, or the administrator can, and the person can see all the messages that came before, all the way up to when the group was formulated. I don't think the same functionality, for example, may exist in WhatsApp. But let's say it didn't exist. You're born into, or you're added to the group, understood, and you can't see the previous messages that have taken place from the group's basically inception. Then your view, or your now, let's say that if you see the group as reality, but your perspective from it is from when you came into being. Do you understand? And so that creates a virtual reality within reality. Yeah, because you were not there at the very origin of things. You're coming in at a certain perspective. And that's a similar way to how we are when we're born into the world, for example, or we're born into natural nature, into the matrix. We're seeing it from when things came into existence from our perspective, i.e., so when we were born, now things are they're becoming real to us. Because one, either we were born in physically, so now we became aware of it, or when certain things are introduced into your universe, it becomes real to you. Do you understand? So I think in the old school, one of the old school classes says, well, did Allah exist before you knew about Allah? Well, the answer is yes, Allah existed, but to you, Allah did not exist until you became aware of it. So when you became aware of it, then it came into existence for you. And so this is what you have is a virtual reality within reality from your own perspective. And so it's understanding how the mind is shaped within our own realities. Do you understand? And in actuality, remember, everything's about you to you. Everything is revolving around you. You are the center of the universe to you. You understand? And so the woman, this is why the importance of the female or the sacred feminine is because the woman is the only one who has really proven existence, meaning to say that you're seeing everything from your own perspective, but the woman is the one who has proven existence outside of herself. So when you touch something or you touch another human being, because of the way your eyes work, the image is obviously being generated internally and not externally. Yeah, your brain is creating a three-dimensional holographic image, which you then project outwards onto the environment. Understood? For all intents and purposes, everybody else could be not real, isn't it? Because they're an image that you are generating in your head, because you can't feel the way another person feels about them. So the way you feel about yourself, you can't feel that from the perspective of another person. Do you understand? So they could be real, which obviously by way of you touching them, you know, or perceive them to be real. But yeah, it could also be an image that you've created in your head. You understand? So, but the woman, obviously having produced another life, is able to perceive the perspective of how she sees us from herself, but she can perceive that also from the child which she is carrying. So therefore has proven the existence of another human being outside of herself. And therefore that understanding or her presence destroys monotheistic religion, because the idea of religion really is generated in the heads of men. You understand? Who obviously created and translated the books. And a book called The Beginning, maybe a bit more rare to get, which the master teacher goes into real cold. So I say cold, it's not cold as in negative. It's cold as insofar as it gives you the straight up reality of where these monotheistic religions ideas. When man got to the point, or mankind, I should say, not man, but mankind got to the point where they realized that they were responsible for their own life, one of the attributes that he inherited at that point was loneliness. Understood? So he created God, angels, and other concepts because he couldn't accept the fact, obviously, that he was now responsible for what took place in the very environment that he occupied. Do you understand? So created this imaginary set of principles so that he wasn't alone. Do you understand? So that he wouldn't be at the top, the one with all the responsibility to make things happen, I suppose, within the environment he was in. So you're living through the minds of the authors of these books. Are you living the real reality if we're following these monotheistic religions? You understand? Whereas, which is all focused on the light and the imagination, all of the things, even their heaven, hell, etc., they're coming from the imagination of human beings. In the real context, it's men. You understand? So are you locking yourself into some European, Caucasian who had an understanding of the perception of the world around them 400 or 500 years ago? Or are you dealing with, you understand, how things are now? And then what was your ancestors' view and perception of the world in and around them? This is what the Master Teacher is bringing to the forefront. So you must replace, as I say, the irreality with true reality for us, but also be mindful that you are yourself living in a virtual reality. So what you feed into the subconscious of your mind, or the soil of your mind, shapes your perception in and around of the reality in and around us. And the important thing is that we must plant the seeds of Wu-Sabat, or plant the Outformation, which has been given to us in the form of information. We must basically feed the soil with this knowledge in order to cultivate a close to or truer perception of the world in and around us. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense for you all. Now, 369, there's a finite beginning. It is not infinite. Yeah, 370, the very fact of a finite beginning caused by and guided by Sayem Akal, divine mind, or Akalat minds who existed before and beyond this one universe. Sayem Makwanu, divine beings, were involved in the growing of this Wahu Makwan universe and the Kashar, flesh, and the man, blood, life within it. And they intervene in Hamanadu, humanoid lives, both good and the Hes, evil ones. 371. To grow or create life from non-life cannot be done. Scientists have tried and utterly failed. 372. The rules of Fatir al-Fatat, natural nature of biogenesis, declare that life can only yatoi come from life, not random chance or just say be and it is. So you can't click your fingers and magically things appear. You understood? And so what we've been explaining to you, I suppose, in these classes and previous ones is the fact that nothingness is not no thing. Nothingness simply is things that are small, too small by way of modern day instrumentation to have a weight that enables them to be detected, you understand, within existence. Understood? And so to help everybody out, and I suppose to, the book called Emotional Energy helps us by making a clear separation insofar as pre-hydrogen is considered the world of energy, post-hydrogen is considered the world of matter. But as we have now expanded, your understanding within that from those basic principles, you understand that in the state of nothingness, there is still matter. Understood? Yes. And so that classification can be energy matter or energy material, where in the world of things, and then that basically is transformed or grows into producing the world of some things. So there's separation in something and nothing. Something is not SOME dot THING, but rather SUM dot THING. Do you understand? So to us, because our measuring tool encompasses all and not in their context the world of light, we are including in ours the world of darkness, then to us it all matters. Yeah, but to them only light matters, or the world of light matters, the world of chaos. Understood? Hence why they refer to it as matter. But to us, it all matters. Understood? And so we encompass one thing about the Nagaru or Negroid is that they should not be ignorant of the darkness. You understand? So this is something we must break out of that monotheistic perception, is that basically the light is birthed from the darkness. You understand? But largely the darkness is ignored. Yeah, and so when you look at the so-called night sky, the universe that you are in, and universes on into dual, tri, you understand, quad, penta, septa, or Seofuna, all these ones, all the way back to the ninth point multiverses, all of these things, you understand, are in darkness pretty much. Understood? Light makes up 10% of the of existence. Understood? So this is the thing you must point. Most of it is darkness anyway, and your eyes are designed to see better in darkness than they are in light. Understood? So nothingness has the ingredients, understand, that produces life on the other side of matter. So nothingness produces somethingness, and so there's life on that side, or existence that produces life on that side, that produces life on what is being referred to as the matter side, from hydrogen downwards. Okay, so it says to grow or create life from non-life cannot be done. Scientists have tried and have utterly failed. Yeah, so even their deity or God is not clicking his fingers and producing. So this is what they say in their beliefs, but the books that they use describe something very, very different if you really look into the detail. Do you understand? Versus create. Versus make, yeah, and so you have to see some of these distinctions within that. So 372, the rules of Fatir al-Fatah, natural nature of biogenesis, declare life can only yatoy, come from life, not random chance or just say be and it is. 373, they now all know of the matrix and its intricate mathematical rules that determine the movement and motion and expansion of this universe. So everything had to be just right from the very start, well planned. Everything from a value of fundamental forces, everything like electromagnetism and gravity, to the relative masses of the various subatomic particles, to things like the number of neutrino types at Wakut, time of the moment to the second, which the Wahumakwan universe has to know already at 9.45 seconds. The slightest tinkering with 2374, the slightest tinkering with a single one of the scores of basic value and relationships in Fatir al-Fatah, natural nature, would have resulted in a Wahumakwan universe very different from this one we live in. So in this context, now you understand that how important time is. Do you understand? Into the, like cooking a meal, for example, as we sort of was touching upon a little bit earlier, if things are not done at a certain point in time, understood, and in the right sequence, you get very different results. Now, as you are aware, the science of the egg, you understand, because the question's always asked, well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? You understand? But the importance is what this is showing us is that the egg had all of the ingredients necessary, understood, to produce life. Like the cell, the secret of it is that it had all of the ingredients necessary to produce, you understand, what it needed to become. You understand? And this is where, I suppose, the divine mind, so to speak, in some certain instances has, where nature, for example, we have nature, things within that particular matrix were gifted with all of the inherent things needed to progress, produce life, or grow in what they were supposed to become. And so you have nature, which is a reactive state, do you understand? And what, mankind, you understand, or the Mukasu wrongly has associated with God and the Most High and these type of things. And as we've expressed before, reminding you all again, this is a reactive state. Yes. So, and so that state is designed to be self-autonomous, self-policing. It works, do you understand? Automatically. There's not some being sitting there making judgments over every decision on what your perception of what good and bad is. Do you understand? And this is why we say, as long as the rules are triggered, then the necessary event is going to take place. Understood? And to give this example, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I'm going to say it again for those newer on the call. Obviously, if you're in a room, there's a shop, a nursery, for example, there's a gas leak, there's babies in there, for example. If somebody sparks, let's say, for this instance, accidentally, a spark of fire, what's going to happen? The reality is that basically the place is going to blow up and explode and likely kill all of the people in that room. So if the things are done which is necessary to produce fire is not going to, the rules are triggered automatically. It's not a case of, well, there's kids in the room. So therefore, by way of people's understanding of how God works, the question would be, well, why didn't God intervene then and stop fire from being created? He's in control of all things. Why didn't God intervene and stop fire from being created in that instance? Because there was babies in the room to stop them from being killed. Do you understand? But yet, in another instance, for example, the same situation might happen, and in a prison, full of pedophiles or whatever, and maybe it doesn't explode, and so then people are left. Well, why did God leave to get the kids killed, and then He didn't intervene, or left for these criminals, you understand, to live and be sustained in the same instance? Obviously, if the rules are necessary or done what's necessary to create fire in that instance, then fire is going to be created. So human beings or mankind has superimposed their idea of God across two things. One, against what nature is doing, you understand? And then secondly, what is the oldest thing in existence? Yes, so their God is based on what is the oldest thing they consider in existence, or God will be the oldest thing in existence, and also, as I say, have overlaid it against a function of nature. Do you understand? This self-autonomous system. So once you peel that away to look at the reality, then you see, well, nature was created by beings of higher intelligence. This is why the term in Wu-Sabat is used, natural nature, because you're dealing with supreme beings, you understood, who have then put these rules in place and have designed it in a way where, as I say, it works autonomously and rarely intervene in sort of what we would describe as, or what would be described as, minor issues. Do you understand? Because of, as we know, what's been described in verse 374, you start messing around with even small things. What are the interconnected consequences of interfering, with things? The outcome that we may perceive would be good on our level may have, unintended consequences, beyond this universe and others, when you start to fool around in that regard. So the intervention required in these regards oftentimes must be triggered by us, understood, to intervene in our virtual reality. And this is how we use the power of our ancestors to connect as well, to fix things in our own personal life. But the Parnatharu are our higher ancestors, where, as I say, who are the ones creating what is called nature, they don't intervene to fix personal things in one's life, but they will intervene in certain instances when it's for the wide or for the greater good. Do you understand? For the whole race, for the whole planet, for example, things of that nature. So obviously we connect to them by way of our ancestors. So we're not dealing with spook connections, it's real tangible connections, because your ancestors inside of your bloodstream, at least up to 4 generations, do exist. They exist inside of you, and that's how you make the tangible connections. But you invoke their power when it's for the greater good, or for the whole, as opposed to your individual personal requests in that regard. So what we're starting to do is remove, or what the master is removing, this veil of illusion about what, as I say, how life works, how creation works, how existence works in this regard. And so this is where we're becoming more scientific, not the ABC kind of version. And why they say the Bible and what means basic information before you leave Earth. Well, then obviously, clearly, it's giving you a kindergarten, maybe even that's a bit of an insult, but a kindergarten version of how the existence and life works in that regard. Any questions?
Yes. There's no questions, but I do need to go back to a question which you answered. And when you went into the holy tablets, I've been asked what verse you was reading from. That was about the galaxies, the 19 galaxies.
So where were we? Let's bear with me. So in the first instance, we read basically page 62 of the version I've got, but it's chapter 1, tablet 6. We went in and we went from verse 41 up to verse 45. So chapter 1, tablet 6, verses 41 basically to up to 46. And then we went across to chapter 1, tablet 8. Yeah. And then we were reading from verse 19 of tablet 8 all the way up to verse 24. And then that's on page 71 of the version of the tablets that I have. Yeah.
Verse 19 to...
verse 19 to verse 24.
Right.
Chapter 1, tablet 8.
Well, yeah. I'll put that in the chat. Okay.
Right. Appreciate
no
that.
more questions.
No problem. I appreciate that. Nothing to argue about. So let's continue. 375. The rules of physics existed from the very beginning of this one Wahoo Makwan universe and had to be finely tuned to allow this Wahoo Makwan universe to grow into Wajuan existence and the way it does now, with the Kashar, flesh and blood thinking creatures in it mathematically. 376. So it did not just randomly Yatoy come into Wajuan existence with just the right properties to allow humanoid thinking, creating Mokwanu beings to exist. 377. And for those who simply say Tawa, yes, that means our God, Allah, Yahweh, exists, I simply say Tawa, yes, within this universe, after you thought an unseen Gadad God into Mokwan being. So you see what we were just explaining there. So God is a concept of man. Man is not a concept of God. Understood? So man has created, or mankind has created that in relation to its existence once he obviously realized that, hey, I'm responsible, or taking on that responsibility, and it happens in a lot of people's lives. They're not ready necessarily to take on that next level of responsibility. To be God in Wu-Sabat definition of it is to be responsible. Have the power to respond, and then you choose to respond or you choose not to respond. So in this regard, understood. So you're getting a watered down or say misinterpretation from, as I say, the concept of divinity, what is holy, God, etc. From people that, as I say, one, didn't care for you a lot of the time based on your skin color, but certainly lack the understanding of the technological understanding that you would have now in this day and time. They don't understand a lot of what they was reading. Do you understand? So obviously they've converted it into a language. In I think the actual fact, who was the serpent of Genesis chapter 3, actual fact, which is actual fact number 33. The Master Teacher, it sort of explains as well about the issue when you're dealing with translation of something referred to as sound shifts. And this is where certain letters within alphabets are interchangeable. Do you understand? And so, for example, the word Adon in the Bible, or Adonai, which means Lord, the D and T, for example, can be interchangeable. So it really comes from, in a sense, Atun or Atum Reye, the Egyptian deity that we refer to, the undivisible one or indivisible one, representing obviously the raising of the sun, the position of the sun when it raises in the morning. So confusion can be arisen because obviously as you shift or translate something from one language to another, and based on people's accents and various other things, letters can be omitted, understood, or letters can be changed, and this obviously alters the sound of what's being said and clearly can change what the original meaning is. So you can't put your sole trust you understand, or the trust for your soul in books that are translated by people that you have no recollection or connected to. So it makes sense, isn't it, that your doctrine would have to be renewed again for the day and time that you're living in. Do you understand? A concept which is really not really accepted by most. They want you to, because they're worshipping what is the oldest thing, isn't it? So within the society, as we expressed earlier, so the oldest book, the oldest this, the oldest that, when in actuality, things can be introduced, renewed, revised, you understand, in that way, updated, because nature is updating or changing, you understand, or updating itself, not to hide things, true things that are taking place. So now, when we, in the first 30 years, when the master teacher basically was going through as the reformer and reforming each of these different religions by pointing out the mistakes and then correcting them to give them a version of truth that would work for them. Now they've gone back and then tried to change all the English translations so to hide the many of the truths that were uncovered. That's not the same as updating things, as I say, to match, as I say, not in the mindset of the people, importantly, but to aid one's understanding, because you're learning stuff which is relevant to our story. You're not learning all knowledge everywhere existing in all places. Yet all of this knowledge and the many thousands, over 1,000 scrolls, etc., that have been released since 1963 are making it so that your story is relevant on the things that you need to know that pertain to us as human beings' existence here on the planet Earth, obviously, and beyond, because our origin is not on this planet, rather in and beyond the stars. So, 378, as for your holy books, they all Lakun teach. Your Dagar deity is physical, came to earth as Genesis 11:5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded, and or his, Mukhbatu, angels came down to Mata, earth, from up there, where he sits on a throne. Quran 97:4. The angels and the spirits descend therein by permission of their Lord for every matter. Or John 8:23. He said unto them, ye are from beneath, I am from above, ye are of this world, I am not of this world. So 379. So Tawa, yes, there is a God, Allah or Yahweh, who is up there above, and Muthyad Mutatalu, extraterrestrial. That is all. 380. Musbatu Sabians, when science examines the smallest particles to the expanding Kalei Makwanat omniverse, to this Wahu Makwan universe, they only find predictable natural rules called by some laws in action. So what we're finding is not randomness, as has been expressed. So the idea of evolution, you understand, and it in that context would be foreign to us or inaccurate. And most, as I say, don't understand that the word evolution, which obviously starts EV, and you add the R to that word, you see revolution, that the two are actually linked together. So evolution simply is describing, as I say, with the circle of space, matter, and time, which is a clock that basically cycles through and determines how existence grows, that it is describing the direction of travel around the circle. So evolution is, as I say, going in a clockwise direction, as they call clockwise, whereas revolution goes in an anti-clockwise direction. So it's really describing the death of, or the growth, which is really the death of 6 ether into 3 ether, whereas revolution is describing 9 ether, both in strength at the top of the circle, its decline, and then its resurrection again, back up to 9 ether. Do you understand? So evolution, or the randomness that they describe as evolution, negates, as I say. Now, people say because something's complicated, then there must be some being that sat behind it, which they have then assigned it to say it's God, Allah, or whatever the case may be. But what we are expecting to know now, that is not the case. That of course there is intelligent beings behind these workings, but what you are seeing in the mathematics and in the science is that the very correlation is within you. You understand? So that same complexity is shown in you as a human being. You are a universe, and I think one of the things that we were seeking to maybe draw your attention to was that, are you being placed at this level, being shown as a young Natharu, a young supreme being in that regard of being trained how to manage a universe, in the context of how you are a etheric or spiritual being inside of your human body, you understand? And now you're being asked to manage this universe. Maybe from our own perception point of view, we can't see the positive or even the damage that our decisions are being made by the intake or how we utilize that body within a certain lifetime, etc. But do you have the discipline as that supreme being to manage and maintain, you understand, this universe? Are you making the right decisions to optimize your body, or are you making decisions which are based on self-preservation, or are you making decisions based on self-destruction? You understand? If you were to rank or rate yourself on how you have managed your universe and how you've looked after your cells and how you looked after your lungs and your heart, you understand, all these different functioning aspects in your glands, all these different functioning aspects of your body, how would you rate yourself? If you had to come in front of Final Four and say, okay, is he or she ready now for that next level, to take on greater responsibilities outside of their human body? Have you demonstrated good practice in the management of your universe? Do you understand? So a sperm hitting the ovum is the same as a comet, intelligent comet hitting, you understand, the atmosphere of this planet and then going into the waters and seeding life in that context. As you've seen the correlation between an embryo within the womb of a sacred feminine and the nebula, you understand, within a nebula within which is birthing sons, obviously within a universe. So this correlation or divine design, or that link is there, represented within us. Do you understand? So that which you were ridiculed for, i.e. your alignment to natural nature when you were growing up, understood because your freckles were too close, are actually divine attributes that link you in. So your darkness is representing the space that you see out there of existence, understood, you understand, and not ugly as it's referred to in this society. So these laws in action. So let's just jump just quickly, just to show you a bit of that, because it's just a reminder really, I suppose, not to show you, if I can find a relevant slide, if we can go back. Let's go to round 187. I'm just going to change the size of the screen for a second, just to see the numbers. It doesn't. Just to give an example for those who haven't seen it, and the type of rules that we're talking about. Now, so as you can see, just for those who have not been on these classes before, in this book correctly, Master Secret, Series 3, Nabab, the Sacred Ash. You see page 11 within that scroll. So so these rules of nothing to somethingness, and that one that we kind of struggle with a little bit. This world of things. So it's saying that obviously here you see some of these rules in action. Listen, and when we're talking about all of what we've talked about in the context is the progression of this journey of ourselves, as things. Understood? And you see the rules of existence are the rules of what? Being, becoming, became. Yeah, the rules of nothingness to somethingness. The sum of things, you are a thing. Yeah, so Mukwanu, being, you of is, you are. So I'm not going to go over this all in its entirety because we've covered it to death. I think, but well, that's maybe not a good way to say, actually. We've covered it in a lot of detail previously. You understand? So obviously of, it's saying the things of is are, the purpose is of are of is. So which is simply saying that things, which is us, are the purpose of existence, yes, and existence is the purpose of things. Understood? So, yeah, things are the purpose of existence, and existence is the purpose of things. So we're intertwined. We've been there from the very origin of things when there was no time. Things are. Yeah, and so the true reality, you understand, where if you peel off all the various different layers, we would end up with what things are. Understood? And what there's supposed to be in this regard. So this is just an example, just of the type of rules that exist within nature, which is to say, through our ignorance, we forgot these rules and how nature works and how these laws, we refer to them as rules, they refer to them as laws, can be used to work in our favor if you understand what's going on. And they clearly have understood these rules, but have used the Nagaru, which we constantly kind of mention to you, as a scapegoat for their wickedness. Yeah, so, the scapegoat is used. So remember, for every action, there's a reaction in this context. And, if you do negative things which trigger rules or laws or reactions in nature, then there are consequences to be paid. But you can use the scapegoat maybe to delay the impact of those rules. And so they've used the Nagaru for the wickedness that they've been indulging in for the last 6,000 years. They have used the Nagaru for the scapegoat for their negative acts, you understand, which has delayed the judgment obviously coming into them. Do you understand? This is why a number of the symbols used have been wrongly intertwined with our ancient symbols. Do you understand? And so you have to know what perspective people are coming from, because it's all races, in terms of from a doctrine or from their own perspective as a race, don't see things the same way. Yeah, so to somebody who is Mehrab, for example, the all-seeing eye, which represents the sun, is considered an evil symbol. You understand? Now, if you accept their belief system, you would also perceive it like a lot of our people do. They see the symbol and think, oh, that's negative, that's evil. Well, it represents the sun. You understand? Depending on direction, can represent the moon, but it represents the sun. So to those who can't take the sun, then the symbol, of course, would be what? Negative. It will be evil to them, but it's not evil to you. So, and this is what we keep saying, that the damage that movies and films, etc., have done to the Nagaru psyche, it's uncalculable in terms of if we were to be compensated the damage that's done. They do all kind of studies on everything else, but where's the damage of the impact on racism on the human psyche? Yeah, as you said, you'll be watching a movie, Lord of the Rings, and the very people that the good guys are fighting against is you. Yeah, because the image of the being that these Frodo and all that in Lord of the Rings were trying to destroy is nothing but the all-seeing eye. You understand? Yeah, Middle Earth and the darkness and 9 ring wraiths that were constantly chasing the guys. All of it is intertwined. It's the way of Wiccanism. You understand? To make good. Or what perceived to be good is bad, and bad is good. Do you understand, in that regard? But this is just showing you, as I say, the different types of rules and the fact that you are a thing. Yeah, supreme being nonetheless, but you are from the thing. So in this state of nothingness, this is where we, I use the word originate loosely. Do you understand? Because in the world of things are. You understand? In that regard, and it's showing, as I say, this progression from becoming to became in these different levels. So this is the rules. These are the rules that are being applied. Yeah, and this is the journey that things must go through in order to fulfill these rules. Understood? And so, therefore, this triggers out of stillness things to kick into motion as a result of these rules. And I say the core within existence is understanding of space, matter, and time. Yeah, that triad. Of within existence, and the three are inseparable within nature. Any questions? Any further questions? So let's get back to where we were. Avert your eyes if you don't want to.
Right. You ready? Excuse me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. You were talking about evolution, but I missed the section. Somebody asked a question. Did you say evolution is considered clockwise 6 ether to 9 ether?
Yeah, so it would be in the opposite. So when you join, when we look at that circle of existence, it would be going. So in the top of the circle, obviously you get a 9. You understood? The middle of the circle, so where you would look at quarter past, it would be a 6, and at the bottom of the circle would be a 3, and then when you come up the other side, you see a 6, and we go back up to the 9 again. So within existence, to move through that circle takes around 72 million years within the universe, understood? And so basically, evolution is describing that movement in a clockwise direction, whereas in nature, things move in an anti-clockwise direction. As you see from the illusion of the sun, from somebody standing on the earth looking upwards, the sun is moving in an anti-clockwise direction because it goes from east to west, doesn't it? Yeah, and then obviously was perceived to be beneath the sea, you understand, these illusionary points, and then to rise back up again. So nature moves in a revolutionary direction, not in an evolutionary direction. So in that context, as I say, and big up to a brother of mine, Hotep Wa, at the time, and he said, well, we've gone from building pyramids to building spliffs. Do you understand? So we've regressed. If you look at in an evolutionary context, we have regressed. Understood? Because we were at that high point, the 9 point, physically optimized for the environment, mentally aligned with natural nature, in tune with the frequency of Wu-Sabat, and now we find ourselves in the ghettos and shaking our asses on TV or whatever the case, twerking, and then no one to account for these type of ratchet behaviors. You understand? So we've regressed to that level from where we were. So evolution to us is not positive. Yeah, but in order to get ourselves out of evolution, you need a revolution, and that's not Malcolm X standing at a window with an Uzi. More so is that the forces of 9 ether re-establish themselves again in the minds of their posterity or their descendants, and basically the forces that are blocking our connection to the frequency of Wu-Sabat being broadcast are cleared, and we are realigned again. Because in actuality, if you think about it, when people die in our culture, or not in our society, I should say, a lot of people find themselves, there's white preachers in certain parts of the world, and I'm not saying all over the world, but maybe a white preacher's performing the ceremony. If they're getting married, a white preacher's performing the ceremony, etc. So all these things that are taking place. But if you think about it in nature, where was the white person when you came around it? You had your mum, you had your dad. They came together and produced you. Where's the priest? Where are all these other parties to come in to advocate on your behalf to your relationship with the divine? They just didn't exist. Understood? So inherently you have those things. So evolution is not us. Evolution is a point towards degradation, towards death. And I say, in the science of religion, the dead must subsist off the living in order to survive. You understand? So evolution is 6 ether to go stational part of the travel on the circle of the Sud, and what they're seeking to do is to stop. So you think about, you travel from the 9, 6, the 3 bottom part of the circle, those revolutionary forces, from mind will try and pull us back from that 3 ether state up back to the 9 again. Understood? Where the forces of the evolutionary forces are seeking to stop that directional travel, to stop us getting back to a 9 mindset. They rather keep us obviously in a 3 or go stational mindset. So therefore are stopping the forces, or seeking to stop or slow them down. They can't stop them, but slow down those forces of nature from reversing, in a sense, or moving back up to the other side of the circle, back up to the 9 point again on the top of the circle. So this is the difference, and why those two words are actually linked to each other. Because what you see with free ether is what we've gone from actual facts at 9 to dealing with things factually, to knowing, to what? Myth, you understand? Belief, understood? And these type of things. They're obsessed with belief, obsessed with fake stories, obsessed with lies. Yeah, this is what's projected through, you understand, the medium of the television, you understand, the cinema, understood? And this is just modern versions of the very books and stories without facts that we find in the translations of the scriptures that they've presented to the world. They no longer have the originals, and so have created, and in a lot of things, versions of books to enhance their mythological stories. You understand? There's no real difference in terms of facts between what J.K. Rowling has written versus the translators of books like the Bible, the Quran, and so on and so forth. You understand? In terms of it being factual. You understand? The Quran itself causes more confusion because it takes the stories from the Bible and basically tries to make it its own, but then just causes confusion because it gets all certain facts wrong, or not say facts, but the recordings of those stories wrong in the context of what was written in the Bible. And this book was put together by a group of men referred to as the Council of Nicaea, which there were several of these ecumenical councils that took place from the 4th century downward. So they, as like a movie, they have focused the areas where they wanted the congregation of various different human beings to see, and omitted things either they didn't want you to see or couldn't explain well, which would affect their ability to be the authority over that information. So you've got some condensed version of that, all within the badge of evolution, in that regard. Yeah. So any other questions?
We have a hand up, and from Ravana. Ravana, if you're listening, I'm going to click your hand so you can unmute or chat, and I hope it does it this time. Ravana, can you unmute? I can hear noise in the background. Is that right? I think we'll move on, and
okay. When she's able to figure out her sound, happy to take the question when she's ready.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let's go to 381. So 381, so in fact, what they find is intelligent design. 382, just consider the human eye. Could such a complexity evolve without a designer or designers? 383, now scientists are able to examine structures small and large, near and distant, from quarks and DNA to quasars and whole galaxies. 384, and what do they see with those ayantui eyes? They see a demonstration of perfection and design that is good for Tir al-Fatar, natural nature. Yet they also see imperfection and misdesign that is bad. Tem for Tir al-Fatar, unnatural nature. Kayoe, created by those made by unnatural measures. Unnatural measures. 385, grafting, tampering with natural nature, tampering with genomes, and Sayakat cells, tissues is not so good of an idea. It's a complex thing. So we're seeing that today, aren't we? Which is the nature of gravitational forces and free ether, where people, for example, are in basically tampering with the natural maths of the human body and introducing obviously plastic surgery, not for essential reasons. You've been in an accident or you've had a mastectomy, for example, because of cancer or something of that nature. So you're doing things for reconstructive purposes, but rather some perception of beauty, you're changing, you're altering the maths of the body. So as we've expressed before, there was no such concept of ugly in ancient Africa, because I say if your mum's 1 and your dad is 3, for example, 1 + 3, understand, in the context of the science of us equals 5, you understand, on a sound scale with the odd numbers. So when you come together, or if you're doing maths, 1 + 3 = 4, that's the correct answer for your parents coming together and their genes merging together that produces you. Understood? That's the correct answer. So there's no ugly or beauty in the surrounding that. It's all beautiful. If the person's born, say, as defect free as possible. Do you understand? So in that regard, so that's the correct answer in that regard, not as they would have it say, well, let's get everybody to look like us. Let's get everybody to move to our vibration. Do you understand? Look like us, think like us, so on and so forth. And this is what is beautiful. And now, as I say, they're using the surgeon's knife to mess around and alter the maths of their body. So it's when somebody plays with their face, do you understand, or with their body, certain instances you can see where it doesn't look right, even just a look and feel of it, because the maths is not correct. Even if that person's nose is not aesthetically pleasing to you, or their lips or whatever, the maths is not right in the face, you understand? And obviously you can see that. So this is the nature of those of unnatural nature. This is the type of behaviors that they obviously indulge in and promote, in a sense. So they go anti-nature in that regard, in a sense. So, and this is what we're seeing right now. So much so that, as I say, if it's then shown to you enough, or you hear it enough, then the normalization of it can make it okay, isn't it? So you're sort of, and then now, remember those who are going anti-nature through a method introduced conceptually to us by the Master Teacher, referred to as religiosity, which is used in monotheistic religion, where those who are wrong, in order to feel like they are right, if I can convince more people to accept wrong, you understand, but call it right, then I'm going to feel right. You understand? This is how religion is doing. So yeah, we know the facts are that you need the presence of a man to have a son in terms of donating a Y chromosome. Women can reproduce by themselves. They can reproduce another female, you understand, through parthenogenesis. So their story of Jesus's birth, or the immaculate conception, as they call it, when we look at it in the cold, let's say cold, but we look at it factually, immaculate conception means that Mary had a bath before she had sex. To be immaculate is to be clean, isn't it? But they will give the impression that, as I say, they will convince the world that there was no man in order to produce this being called Jesus through the womb of a woman, which is anti the rules of nature. Do you understand? But religiosity says, if I can convince enough people to believe as I believe, then even though I'm wrong, I will feel like I'm right. Yeah. So when you first heard Kanye West on auto-tune, it sounded off key. Understood? And then when you heard him without the auto-tune, you can see he can't sing. Yeah. But so much so, it's been drilled into your heads, hearing it on the radio, hearing it on TV programs, hearing it on this. Now, off key sounds on key, even though it's still off key. Yeah, the fake body now looks more normal than it did when you first saw it. You understand? So this pumping of, this sort of adverse or anti-nature images into one's mind or into the sound of one's head clearly can make it appear normal when it's still, as I say, adverse. And so systems or projects, etc., that work with the rules established by the Natharu are considered to be natural. Things that work against it or without the permission of the Natharu, would be anti-nature, understood? And so you have these classifications like what is organic, for example, in the supermarket versus things that are not organic. Yeah, there's a classification process that one has to achieve to get that organic classification, for example, by some authority. And so this is where natural and unnatural can come into play in that regard. Now, 386, say a cat cells are complex information from outformation processing machine comprising of nines of thousands of proteins arranged in uniquely intricate algorithms of communication, any synthesis. The human body contains 90 trillion say a cat cells, if not defected or deformed. You understand? And so the word synthesis, let's just look that word up just to help our understanding. Yeah, and this is the part I want to focus on. So notional sense in combining of separate thoughts or conceptions into a whole. Do you understand? Or as you say in here, the sense of combination of parts into a whole. So you're seeing all of these different composite bits, understood, acting as one. You understand? And actually, in those rules, make sure I can find them again, that we were looking at previously, an important one of those rules is about parts, for us anyway, those rules of things, is that part and whole are one and the same. Do you understand? So saying, here you see in verse 4 of Master Secrets, Nabab Sacred Ash, understood. What does it say here? It says, for the rules of things and my beloved of things are the exact same, because all things or a thing is all existence and existence is all things. So in our natural design, as you see, the cell, of course, do you understand, has, so if you think about it, you donate part of you understand, forward insofar as the production of a child, and we'll go into that in a bit more detail in a bit. But that part of you is also all of you. Do you understand? So we can see in our divine design as human beings that we take one cell within your body, and that basically has all of the characteristics of the whole of you, obviously, in that regard. So you can be cloned from one cell of you. Obviously, the mental link is not there, but you could be physically cloned from a part of us. So the design is in, you understand, the whole or part with us. This is why when you listen to the affirmation, we say at the beginning, we reflect that. You understand that obviously part and the whole at the same time. Do you understand? So as say you see these correlations, as I say, the darkness of the universe, for example, as a space to allow things to grow within that environment, is the same triple darkness as that we see in the womb of a woman. You understand? So part and whole for us is one and the same. Do you understand? Or it's showing that a smaller aspect of ourselves can represent or reflect the whole of the system. So this is carried through as part of this design from being, becoming, became. And let's get back to where we were. So it says each of the 90 trillion cells stores outformation that becomes information in DNA codes, processes, and replicates it in in 3 forms of RNA and thousands of supporting enzymes, exquisitely supplies the system with Nishat energy and seals it in a semi-permeable phospholipid membrane. You understand? And so here they shows a bit of a diagram of that. So within a cell, or these lipid kind of bilayers. So this is basically, obviously, for example, in a cellular context, the wall of the cell, for example, is not solid. Yeah, it's actually these sort of layers that are clumped together, and basically they move to allow waste out and allow substances or sustenance, you understand, in. Yeah, and so it's just an open and close type situation in this context. And so it can store, but also release waste products in that regard. So things are not as solid as they appear to be. So when somebody draws a diagram of a cell wall, for example, they're going to draw a solid line. When in actuality, it should be more of a dotted line to represent the fact that, as I say, is that the layer can open and close in that regard. And there's intelligence in there to how it regulates, as I say, energy intake versus waste extraction. 388. So this is not by some spirit, Dadud, saying be and it is, or let there be, or in the beginning was one word, just as to take a handful of dust and create a complex human body is only his story. His Za'amus, religious legends, fictions, Kathabat, lies, 389, the original beings, Nathara overseers, and the Nathara Tat overseers who grew. The 9 dwellers were originated at different intervals of Wakut time. Once Wakut time was born at that very moment, 390. Yet since original deities, Nathara overseers became Kashar flesh and spirit, or Kashar flesh from spirit, once grown, never cease to exist, only change in some form by formulas long as this Wahu Makwan universe last, the metamorphose, change or transmute composition and form and become human beings. 391. Human is flesh, Makwan being is spirit, and animal likewise at different intervals of Wakut time through the egg and sperm process, regaining their original shape and form and composition with each birth. This is not by random. So this is quite interesting insofar as we've expressing or showing you those rules in being, becoming, became, that obviously we were in a different form, and eventually, we have become, as I say, those as they refer to it in the Greek as the Ennead form, you understand? Excuse me, and the Ogdoad forms, Ogdoad of the 8, and then which is us in water-based creatures, and then obviously onto land as land-based creatures, obviously, which has allowed our Natharu, or us as Natharu, to incarnate in physical form on this planet, understood? And so these structures, or smaller versions of these structures, have allowed us, or the mind, as I say, to express itself in these forms. And so what's interesting is saying that obviously regaining the original shape and form and composition of each birth. So you are presenting, as I say, or donating a piece of yourself, isn't it, as the sperm and the ovum? Yes. And that makes it small enough for you to transport your whole essence, into those crafts, or mechanisms, obviously, or crafts or ships, you understand, in the form, obviously, male as seamen, Understood? And obviously the woman in preparing the ovum or the egg, and then these ships obviously dock in heaven or haven, you understand? Which is a heaven, the word heaven really is the word haven, means a docking point. So these seamen on these craft ships dock with the ovum, do you understand, in heaven. And then what happens is through the woman, we grow back obviously our original shape or composition. So we are transforming ourselves in different ways within the environment, obviously to allow, as I say, the progression of the mind to exist, obviously going forward, or our mind to exist going forward in these various formats, but still retain, yes, obviously by way of the ba'at or the soul, our link back to the mental, do you understand, or from the very origin of our beginnings, using that word loosely in this context, you understand? So we're seeing what's being described here and the changes, as I say. So we represent, obviously, the universe expressing itself in this context as us, as that let's say, for example, a smaller version, obviously, that it has produced. This is what we represent of that original universe form. So we are a universe, do you understand? And the universe was chosen in its expression as we have, yes, when we expressed ourselves going forward, we became a sperm and an ovum, obviously, to progress life and to allow, let's say, our mind to exist in the, obviously, as a human being, you understand, which we grew back into the original shape. There are some beings that don't procreate in that same way, you understand, in this context. There are two parties involved, so a dual verse produces a universe, do you understand? But other higher beings, for example, may progress forward, but they don't understand that concept of children in that way. It's what you read about, for example, in Man from Planet Risk, where saying the Riskians don't have any concept of children in that regard, in terms of their production. But yet you see the master teacher, for example, constantly refer to us as his children. Because what? A new mindset has been birthed in the presentation of Wu-Sabat, you understand? So, and what you read about, obviously, those needing to be, or to hit the marker of development, you understand, that's set, or the standard that's set for our revolutionary growth in this time period, is set for us as human beings of a certain standard of development that we must reach or hit, understood, for us individuals, but also collectively as a species, you understand, that's been set obviously by our Nafaru in this time, which would be considered success in terms of our transformation. You understand, a certain level, obviously, that we need to hit, and the incarnated Nabab Akhtar sets that marker in this day and time, so that we've got a practical example, I suppose, of what to follow in terms of the development of ourselves, because there's clearly a separation between the Natharu, who've not lived in flesh for many billions of years in that regard, and will only come down, as we expressed previously, to that fourth plane of existence, the mental. And so obviously some are born into this world to provide practical examples, obviously, for us to do. This has happened throughout the ages, and it's not exclusive to the Negroid race. Others will have their teachers, masters, prophets in various different forms or guises to guide them back to their ascension journey, understood? And we must, as I say, or should, although as rebellious as we are, listen to the one sent to us, because listening to somebody who's sent to somebody else will lead to it's an idol worship for us. No power resulting from those connections, because our power doesn't exist with their ancestral forces. Now, 392. Exceptions now take place: deformed, conjoined Mokwanu beings, and change of form by tampering with Fatir al-Fatah, natural nature's rules. We were just discussing some examples around that, particularly with this proliferation of plastic surgery. 393. Yet you Nagarnadu Negroids have the sun genes, and like the suns and all other scientifically living Mokwanu beings, the beginning of evolution and Mawat death. The Kashar, Wu, Damam, flesh and blood deities die, ethereal scientific Mawat death, so become subject to suffering. As for Tir al-Fatah, nature is tampered with. They die a physical Mawat death in all forms. Tawa, yes, including physical death. 394, all original deities, Kashar, Wu, Damam, flesh and blood, were Khemem, black in colour, and grew genuinely kinky hair on their heads. So basically, what this is obviously expressing to us is that, basically, as evolutionary forces came here around about 17.25 million years ago, you understand, by way of obviously a large comet, bringing those energies to this planet, then it caused death to be introduced into this environment where previously either beings lived for inordinate amount of time, or there was no seasonal change as we would classify it today, where you've got life forms which are basically there are points of optimum energy output, and then obviously that output slows down, and there's a need to rest, and therefore, as I say, where the rest period is almost akin to death or low energy output, as we see, for example, in trees that change, for example, from full expression in summertime with their leaves and the flowering, but then when you get to winter, for example, there's no leaves on the tree. So it's at a state of low energy or death, whereas certain life forms like the evergreen tree negate the, you understand, and like us, prior to these evolutionary forces arriving here, we having this decline in the sun, or up and down in energy, or in power at one time, then now lose power, then back into power again. No, that we're retaining a certain level of power all the way through, and so we're not really supposed to be subject to this decline and up and down, not in a way that would certainly lead to us losing knowledge of self. So this has come by way of beings obviously mixing in and throwing us off, you understand, this almost our own divine tree, because now when you're mixing in genetically, you're altering the fate of your species, you understand, because you're now including some other species now who may have a different fate to our own. And so this caused us now to start to experience death and other things. And as we see from this context, the suffering that arises at the moment, not only in life, but also if we don't align ourselves correctly, we're not vibrating on the proper frequency at the point of death, then some of us may achieve the higher levels of 7, 8, and 9 ether, but invariably through ignorance and dying in fear, we would end up in those lower frequencies, which makes us an etheric battery for lower beings, you understand? And all of that basically has to be realigned so that none of us is in those lower vibrational planes of, let's say, 0 to 6 ether, you understand, which are not of our own ancestry. And so, as I say, Ray Haraket is a project or a program that basically needs to realign our energy, or it should be directed to the ancestral planes where our ancestors exist and not be subject to use by other lower forces, you understand? So this is what this is touching upon. So it says, we grew genuinely kinky hair on their heads, 395, by Fatir al-Fatah, natural nature. Some became green, blue, by bad Hawaii air here when they descend to earth. yet originally Khamem black for two main reasons. So the intake of air, isn't it? So you see some of us depicted on the walls of not just our culture, but some in some Dravidian culture as well. And it's to do with the quality of the air that we were taking in that regard, or the different configuration of air led to people being topaz in colour, or as I say, olive green, for example, is not just a symbolic depiction. This is physically what is depiction. Obviously, the oxidization or the introduction of oxygen into the air contact caused our skin, our melanin to rust. So we have more of a copper tone in colour, or brown tone in colour, with the change of the composition of the air over time. Now it says, originally Khamem black for two main reasons. One, the sun who fertilized their mother's eggs by ethereal lightning ray or beam had kinky hair called flocculi. And two, when the mother first orbited from the sun, Rayet and Rayetat, billions of years ago, Rayetat was in flame, and her flames inflamed the planet Earth, which finally cooled off down enough for other life forms and activities. However, 396, the sun genes of nine ether in this atmosphere were so dense and potent and strong that anyone who survived in it had to have sun heat genes inside enough to offset or balance the sun genes outside. So, excuse me. So, as we see, that ethereal lightning, is created by the obviously the formula of hydrogen, 554 million tons of hydrogen turning into 550 tons of helium every second. Obviously, the excess 4 million creates sunspots, and so the kinky hair or flocculi of the sun obviously is seeding this excess 4 billion that causes various offshoots from the sun, which then caught in its orbit. You understand? These obviously initial, sort of burning flames of liquid ether, fire, understood, which eventually, as say, cooled down enough where the fire was centralized, but then those gases arising from the fire started to cool down and create water, understood, and obviously that water, in terms of its cooling down, then started to drop into the center. The combination of water and this, burning fire created, explosions on the planet and different things of that nature, leading to mountains and other types of structures that we see around the Earth today. So very violent exchange of energies in the early formulation of life here on the planet Earth. But for us to be able to have existed within all of this supreme and powerful heat, we had to have certain characteristics that would shield us, obviously, of course, from the tremendous heat as the sun birthed its own offspring in the form of planets, and that is obviously the sun heat genes that's being referenced here for us as nine ether beings. So it says, so the sun heat genes inside the Nathara overseers of Kashar Wu-Damam, which we were just touching upon earlier, the flesh and blood, Atum, Shu, Tefnut, Geb, Nut, Osiris, Isis, Seth, Nephthys, the Ennead, was so strong, and the Sechemul, powerful from the fire called nine ether, and water contents therein, Nun, Nuntat, Ha, Hatat, Kak, Kaktat, Amuntat, the Ogdoad, that they birthed Khamem Kashar, black skin, and also Khamem Wabar, black hair. And so they were called Mukhmam, black, or Mukhmamu Salal, black race. 398. Sun heat genes naturally and still in direct descendants of these original overseers whose posterity, mean descendants, is now called Pa Nagarnadu Salal, the Negroid race, also called Pa Muhammad Salal, the black race. 399. As sun heat genes reach the skin surface of Pa Nagarnadu Salal, the Negroid race, or Pa Muhammad, Salal, the black race, they burn oxygen and turn the skin black or blacker than it already is at birth. So the blackening of our skin obviously is those original characteristics of the sun. So we breathe in oxygen, as you're aware. We breathe out carbon dioxide, which is evidence of fire. Fire is fueled by oxygen, and the offshoot of fire is carbon dioxide. So we are burning black, you understand? Hence why, as I say, as a baby, your ability to process air is less efficient than when you sort of grow older. So your skin and your hair texture gets more curly, and your skin obviously darkens as your genes become stronger, start to express themselves even more. Understood? So our blackening is fueled more so internally than it is externally. We are not burnt black. We are original black. You understood? In that regard, because of the internal sun that we carry, or the terrestrial representation of the sun that we carry. Yeah. So we're going back now to then. So I think we've got some understanding of what all of those things were. So we've gone round the houses to come back again now, away from actual facts, his story, understand ether negrogenesis and these type of terminologies, to go back then to where we were in the proof. So we're now in the proof now, back again to go and understand what was taking place in our understanding of this. So hopefully we've gone around the big circle to come back around again to see what was taking place in this regard. So let's revisit this page 65 again. Now we've gone back in this big circle. So any questions, by the way?
There are no questions, but before you go, let me just separate the windows here. I'm on a small screen. And yeah, there's no questions. So.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go back through it again then and see if we can understand what's going on. So 375. So yeah, no matter what they say or do, their Shamutat 6,000 years is over by the rule of Fatir and Fatat, natural nature, in this Wahoo Makwan universe. And what gives this Wahoo Makwan universe of natural and now unnatural nature life form. 376. And the Nadam order is universal ether in unity with the rules and Dawarat cycles of natural nature ether, which we were touching upon earlier in terms of the ether's progression in the Smat circle. So 9 ether is ether in its strength, youth and old age, and it eventually dies and becomes 6 ether, and then 6 ether in death produces ghost ether, or free ether as it's known as, on the lowest point of the circle.
Nabab, can I just come in? On your screen, you're off center. You've been off center for a while, but I thought that's how you wanted it. I'm just double checking.
Okay, is that better? I mean, it's just the way it's probably shown on the screen. Yeah, at this point. Probably. Okay, no problem. So I appreciate the intervention. No problem. So on that side, so it says, as universal ether is liquid, mind, and the Shat energy of the universe is life, demand blood. Natural ether is the Shat energy that gives illumination and life to the multiverses and the persons and Shayanat things therein. You understand? Again, not to rehash the same thing. I think we've gone through this in the several parts. We've stepped away. So more detail on that, probably check out parts 20, 21, and 22. We've been going through that in some detail. 3878, which is just basically describing, not to do people like that, but it's just basically describing how, as I say, when we were looking at those rules of became, how the importance of ether is, as I say, in allowing energy to transfer from one place to another. But ether doesn't just, in what we would describe as a wireless form, but it won't just be the mechanism to allow energy to transfer. It will build the infrastructure necessary to allow that communication to take place, or allow that energy transfer of communication to take place. So it will functionally form the infrastructure, for example, like the human body, and build it so that the mind can exist and receive the necessary energy that it needs from the source, in this context, from nothingness, obviously, which is a source of unlimited energy, on into something which obviously requires energy to sustain it in that regard. So 378, and the Damag brain synapses magnetically and magically come together and unite to produce the mag brain. Some of them melt down during this unifying process into ether neurogenesis, growing brain fat cells, creating new neural pathways, and ether mind reason starts creating, growing, and developing the body of the organism that the brain needs to have survival and support. How to harness your brain neuroplasticity to enhance neural pathways, and the neuroscience of Napa, Wu-Sabat, which activates sleeping brain cells. So again, in those previous parts, we did explain to you how we are able, as a people, to take the smallest things within existence, brain etheric seeds, and explain to you those rules that absolute vacuum and absolute material, when those two states are brought into correlation with each other, that magical things start to happen. And there was a whole breakdown. Remember, we provide you with the deity Merit or Meritat, all from Pataret, or name Pataret, but the deity Merit, the Chronomy deity, which Chronomy, remember, is the science of what you see the conductor doing an orchestra waving their hands, because you bring these two states into correlation with each other, and then say magical things are able to happen. We're able to melt down these brain etheric seeds or newts, understood, and they liquefy, and then they're able to formulate the mechanism of how brain synapses take place. So how these connections obviously jump between neurons to form synaptic pathways that allows thought, reasoning, etc. to take place within the human brain. And as we've expressed earlier about this ether, so ether obviously is creating or grew the brain to allow the mind now, or mind energy or mental energy, to progress itself forward and have a place to exist and function, so on and so forth, linked and integrated with the mental, understood. So as you say, the whole thing in terms of sound right reasoning, as say we think about conducting into these two states, we would obviously understand that nothing really is impossible, because we have the power to create, because we are controlling the very things that formulate existence, understood. But bringing those two states in is simply, so if you think about a musician, and the absolute vacuum would be the non-sound, isn't it, or the space, and the absolute material would be the sound being made, isn't it? And so what happens is that the person then uses their mind as time, understood, to bring those things into unison. So what correlates to be a good sounding tune or on key is a skill, isn't it, of the musician to bring all of those three parts into correlation with each other. Do you understand? And this is what is effectively is being described, or what we went through to understand what was taking place or what sat behind what was being expressed here. So that's quite important to know. The non-sound is as important as the sound, and you'd express that, or we would refer to that as timing. You understand? But the mind of the person as time is what bring those two states into correlation with each other, and then magical things happen. Do you understand? In relation to those rules. So 379, this is what is called a genetic explosion of awareness, breaking the spell, and after the organism is recreated or regrown or born, the brain continues to generate ether fluids by way of its Nabab heart at your solar plexus and lungs, pumping new activated Damam blood. 380, the Damag brain produces ether, which is the new Nawah kind of life called mind and chaos reason, and universal ether is a combination of all elements and all nawahu kinds of madad material that can become nashat energy and have become energetic warmth, heat of life, energy, to the degree that anything can exist at any given point. 381, and this means that ether at the right side of the east horizon is Atum. So the remember, on that side of the circle, Atum would represent the position of the sun as it appears to rise. Yes, origination of heat in living Shayanat things of Shanan's circle of Nadam order, which we touched upon earlier, this circle of space, matter and time, and has a great amount of heat of the sun and activates different elements and atoms and sakafat cells. And on the left side or west horizon is Amun, declining of planetary warmth and heat. Yeah, so Amun is where the sun appears to set. So if you look at the three positions, Atum, position 1 on the east side, you've got Atun in the middle, and then as the sun, as it appears at noon, you understand, it's the highest point of energy, as it appears to somebody from standing on Earth looking up. And then we've got Amun, obviously, as to where the sun appears to set. Yeah, so declining of planetary warmth and heat there, because we get in a slowing down of energy in that regard, and of energy in that regard. Yeah, I'll leave that there to confuse people. Now, 382. For Tirad nature, ether is liquid, gas, life source of this solar system and its persons and living things, animism revealed by rules and dawarat, cycles of nature, and ma'ad at seasons. 383. Natural ether performs spontaneously and is indeed efficacious, meaning efficient. Yeah, kasud, meaning that natural ether works automatically and is able to do what must be done and can do it with perfection. We went through these types of ether previously, so just again going back over them just for this. So 384, helper ether is the rays of the sun, as it is the physical life force of this Tapal world. 385, and head ether, chaos reason, is the mental and spiritual sparks of life in all living. Ether is called brain, nanut, nut or newts, natat to protect, natat to leap, jump. So natural ether is brain nut. So here we see the safaf here, showing the depiction of that. So we can see outformationally, yeah, we see that the new bowl here, you understand, and the tat symbol there, which is a loaf, where they get the word tits from, not to be crass, but it's where they get the word tits. So you know there's a female presence in there. So outformationally, and then we see this symbol here, which is the symbol for, or this safaf or hieroglyph for sky. You understand, the patat symbol there. So this melting down. So brain, remember, nuts can't be perceived by the human eye. So it can't be seen by the human eye or in our current state, but can be perceived by us. And they are the smallest things within existence. Yeah, that can be considered to be matter. Understood? So this is why when we explained earlier, matter is not to us related to hydrogen down to Einsteinium. Understand? So what they classify as those physical elements, or the elements of physics, but rather to us, the actual smallest part that can be considered to be matter is these brain newts, the smallest particles within existence. And so this obviously clearly is showing our ability to take these brain newts and transform them into a manner that can be, as I say, used as energy to fuel a number of different processes to sustain life within existence. So here we see 386, Nut Natat, the feminine Natharatat personification of cosmic elements who explain this physical Wahu Makwan universe. She is one of the sacred nine, the Ennead. So where we were talking about there, the 9 points understood, or principles we can see here represented by these different Natharu, you understand? Not only clearly is it talking about these 9 energies, for example, that help to formulate a universe, but we see that obviously represented physically in us, as we've mentioned many times here. You cut the tail of a sperm, for example, and you look at it under electron microscope, you see 9 centrioles or tubes, which take this sort of dramatic energy and formulate it into one form, do you understand, within the sperm itself, and it merges with the ovum to form a universe. So within, so out of the Ogdoad 8, understood, we get these 9 different points, which in the context of us helped us to form the physical body out of the waters of this planet. So Ogdoad represents us in the waters, obviously as mermen, mermaids, and then obviously onto land, then on land we're reflected in this Ennead state. But it obviously replicates itself if we go backwards, not only through the birthing process, but obviously in the formulation of a universe. So again, this correlation is being transferred through and representing the various different elements, you understand, leading to what? The birth of Hara, you understand, or Ha, understood, who was the demigod, isn't it? The demigod, part human, part deity, in this regard, birthed out of these sacred 9, do you understand, in terms of what they represent. So physically and both mentally, remember, when you talk about conception, obviously this is the sperm hitting the ovum, but this is, so here would be Geb and Nut coming together to produce these 2 sets of twins that we see at the bottom. So us in that kind of physical form. But if you think about it, before conception, you have inception. And so you see that Tefnut represented receptive thinking, you understand, fundamental part of us, and then Shu represented perceptive thinking. When you bring receptive and perceptive together, it produces what? Concepts. So we were produced mentally first, or by way of energy first, before we came into the physical, so to speak. Do you understand? So that's why you're already considered a year old before you're born, because the 9 months, when you add in the inception, then it adds a further 3 months. So we're a year before we come into, you understand, before we're birthed, which is obviously the fate time. And so Geb, as you know, is represented by the goose, you understand, which obviously is a bird of 2 elements, isn't it? Air on this side, and then water. So everything our ancestors did, you'd see as a meaning, obviously that sits behind it, that makes sense. You understand, to what's being explained, which is the importance of symbolism, which is helping us to reason or see that the unseen, or to understand the unseen. In that regard. So we can see now that this. You can see that this diagram really explains in some great detail how we got here. Understood? Yes, and how we arrived here. So we can see that, as I say, we see that the Ankh, obviously the representing the circular part, the flesh of the woman, the downward part representing the phallus, understood, or the manam, penis of the male. The two coming together, as we just expressed, provides the opportunity then for us to produce children. You understand, which is why it's called the key of life. Yeah, because we're living through our progeny in that regard. But we are also the terrestrial representation. We are the children of the sun, having, as I say, above 6 to 7 inches above our navel, a functioning sun referred to as a solar plexus, understood in that regard. And we can see here that we saw the Patak symbol, correct? Yeah, representing the sky. And we can see in the use of our symbols that it's solid, it's now filled in, but also inverted, and you can see it represents outer space or a vacuum. Remember those two things that we spoke about, absolute matter and absolute vacuum, needed in order to produce, facilitate existence. And we see here the what seems like a series of M's, not skill, this wavy line representing naturally occurring water. Yeah, in that regard. So when it's horizontal, naturally occurring water, you can see the air or the atmosphere, the patat, the sky there as the atmosphere. And then water, obviously, you can see here, enclosed clearly within a system. Yeah. And here represents Earth. So these circles here represent Earth, obviously. So this combination under the sky, as we get moisture and then we get Earth, obviously we are breathing water vapor, so less dense water that we see as seawater and as fresh water in our rivers, etc. So that's obviously contained within a system. And then we see these 9 points, dealing with, as I say, our construction, excuse me, not only materially, as we just described to you, but also mentally being described. And as you look at the shape of it, it forms, as I say, more looks like the original pyramids that we see in Sudan, you understand, and pre-dynastic ancient Egypt, as opposed to the ones shown where they've been reconstructed, more modern periods that we renovated, same technology, same science. But remember Khufu and his sons, etc. When they rebuilt the pyramids in Giza, remember they didn't build them from scratch. They were obviously renovating those pyramids, obviously to tremendous skill and size, but they had to go down south in order to get the plans to renovate those. And a lot of material, remember, came from places which obviously are very far away from the Giza plateau, like Aswan, for example. You need to take a plane really to get there, or it's a 15-16 hour drive in a car. The question is, well, how did they transport the materials from this location up to Giza to build and construct these pyramids? You understand? So this is some of the sciences which they've got all manner of explanation. Those who are sitting there now as Arabs, invaded Arabs and Muslims, and not those Nagaru or Nagarnadu who built those original pyramids, and so therefore do not understand the science of how they were done. So they give some weird and wonderful explanations that don't really make sense, you understand, and could not be replicated really by modern day techniques, really, without some significant, as I say, logistical input in how they move those, the stone from one location or the quarries in that location up to those areas of building the pyramids. Now, interesting enough, if you were to look at the way we split things, I think we touched upon this in the last class, of what they call, because upper to them, what they call an upper is lower to us, and what is lower is upper to us. But remember, it was split down into what? Yeah, it's split down into what? 23 plus 23 nomes, you understand? Or areas equivalent to a state or local authority type area. So again, you're seeing, was it for 23 plus 23 is what? 46 chromosomes. The number seemingly for a human being, isn't it? So even the way our cities were positioned and structured and how we move things logistically is all based on this correlation of obviously bringing the heavens, or these higher states of existence for us, to bear on planet Earth, understood, to match this, the journey of the rules of us in terms of being, becoming, became, understand, in terms of the rules of things and the rules of existence within that. Yeah, so we see it's here talking about the secret eight. As we touched upon, these Ogdoads, and to get a better understanding of that, we can jump into this book here called fakely called the Book of the Dead. It's really known as the Coming Forth by Day. The Bible is the real Book of the Dead because everybody in it is dead. But what we do is we get an understanding of what we mean when we're talking about these Ogdoad states, because the planet Earth has been destroyed by a number, not destroyed, but the Earth has been destroyed in various points in time, understood, and then a replenishing obviously is out to take place, understood. And so what it's showing you is that each of these, the pairs of Ogdoads, 4 pairs of them, represents a genetic shift, understood, in us as human beings, you understand, or Nadu, in our progression going forward after the planet has had a major event or incident, you understand. I think because of time, I won't go through this in some detail. I may just revisit in the next part 2 to go through it in some detail. So just want to show you these 4 different stages, you understand, when, as I say, we evoluted out of the waters. One interesting thing is in the Holy Tablets, in chapter 1, it really explains that, obviously, one of the things is obviously human beings, that we started from single cell, very simple life forms, and as you know, the planet was seeded here around about 4 billion about 4 billion years ago, when we were transported here by way of the dolphin, you understand, who then defecated or dropped its load into the waters of the planet, which eventually helped produce the Sands people in South Africa, who we all descend from, or they refer to as Mosanu in the Sabatic language. Understood? We existed for many billions of years as very simple life forms, you understand, cells, single cell amoebas, things of that nature, understood? So, and as I say, I've gone through various different changes over those years as a planet, as I say, has been hit by extinction level events, as they would be recorded as. So, any questions?
There are no questions.
Last time we got there. So, okay. All right. So I think I'm going to finish on this point. We'll start off at this point in the next class in 2 weeks' time. And so, as I say, we'll revisit some concepts there to make things a bit clearer. You don't want to miss next week's, or in 2 weeks' time. You don't really want to miss that class because we'll go back over and make some of these things a bit clearer. So one of the things that we will cover is this concept of anti-construction versus construction. So if we want to know the relationship, obviously, between the mental and the physical, we need to really understand this, and it's reflected, obviously, in the science of the pyramid. So we go into that in some detail in the next class, and just around the symbolism of this particular diagram, and going into this in some detail. So you don't really want to miss the next couple of weeks, but if you do, then we'll have the recording on our YouTube channel in some instance. So any questions before we close out for today, please?
There are no questions and nothing's coming since you've asked us.
Okay, so we are this book now, because we've gone around a big circle to come back to where we were in the proof. Yeah, so actual facts of proof. So that's where we have been studying today, but we spent a lot of time in actual facts, his story today. And then when we come back, we'll go into a bit of detail in this book, Coming Forth by Day. And continue there just so we can understand a bit more about the Ogdoads and their relationship to the Iliad, so the sacred 8, which is still even 9, because once you add a tum into there, it becomes 9, but 8 for these 4 sets of shifts, and then into the 9 into the Iliad. So we'll have some understanding of that, and then we'll go and talk about some of the symbolism of these pyramids in that regard.
So can I just come in? Sorry, before you go. I missed the question, actually. I was looking, but obviously I missed it. Selket Mary Bar asked, what scroll is this lesson from, please?
So I think I just explained it. So the proof is the main thing of focus, and so in the book, the proof at the moment, this is where we're at for the proof, but we were, as I say, so we're looking at the proof, we'll jump into a little bit of the black book and then come back to the proof again. But the book that we were dealing with most, I think, is from actual facts history. And let me just go back and pull that out. So the main thing we're talking about is actual history, and that was to understand a certain section of the proof, or finalising understanding a certain section in the book. So primarily today we've been in actual fact 73, his story, and the proof, and we've touched into the holy tablets as well, based on certain questions today. So those have been the 3 main sources within our doctrine of Wu-Sabat. Okay. All right. So next class, same time, in 2 weeks' time. So that will be, if my math is correct, it'll be the 21st. So same time. So check out our YouTube channel. I mean, let people know about the class. Promote that. I think we've had some good support of late, so it'd be good to get the numbers up in this class. There will be other teachers as well coming in 2024, so we can cover more subject areas. Obviously, conscious of the fact we've only every couple of weeks, and there's so much information to cover, so maybe some different type of topics. I think obviously these classes are more at the, I don't want to say heavy end, but they're more at the understanding certain concepts in Wu-Sabat, but obviously through the Nubian nation and stuff like that, there may be some things where people are stuck still on some religious understanding and sort of covering some of those subject areas. So there will be different teachers coming along in 2024, and that may help people's understanding of certain concepts, etc. So big things happen for 2024. So appreciate your support. This class will be out on our YouTube channel before the end of the week. But as I say, support us next time if you're minded to do so. 2 weeks time, 21st, on the same platform. So look out for any notifications for that if you're subscribed. Okay, appreciate everybody's time today. Good interaction, good questions, and we'll see you in 2 weeks time. Take care all. We'll see you soon.